Chapter 12:29 Holy Sun 3 Mu Shi had vanished many years before Yi Qingtang arrived at the central mainland in her previous life. It was only then that people discovered Mu Shi's other identity. Besides being a teacher in the Eternal Academy, Mu Shi had another identity. He was a famous thief in central mainland. Legend had it that there was nothing that he could not steal. Yi Qingtang had not intended to concern herself with this fellow who had tried to get her into trouble, but now she changed her mind. Hold on. Just as the child was about to crush Mu Shi's skull, Yi Qingtang suddenly spoke. Ah Yao. The vicious look on the child's face disappeared, and he looked at Yi Qingtang with delight. Ah Yao, are you finally willing to speak to me? The child's face was filled with joy. He immediately flung Mu Shi aside and flew into Yi Qingtang's arms. Ah Yao, next time you must not ignore me. I know I should not have broken your rules previously. In the future, I will definitely obey you. If you forbid me to kill wantonly, I won't kill anymore. Look. I don't use human blood anymore. All this is deer blood. The child crouched on Yi Qingtang's knee and raised his head. He looked at Yi Qingtang as if he was about to cry. He seemed desperately afraid that Yi Qingtang would not believe him, so he waved his small, blood-stained hands under Yi Qingtang's nose. Yi Qingtang looked at this mercurial little child. She did not know what to say. At that moment, a figure slowly walked over. It was a handsome man dressed in white. He leisurely walked over to the throne and bowed to Yi Qingtang. Your servant, Xue Fu, was too late to receive you. Holy Lord, please forgive me. Then Xue Fu said, Holy Lord, Holy Sun is speaking the truth. The Holy Lord was previously displeased because the Holy Sun slaughtered humans and refused to speak to the Holy Sun. However, after the Holy Lord left, the Holy Sun became more restrained. Holy Sun had not left the temple in all these years and has quietly guarded your treasure trove. He has not killed anyone. Ah Yao, did you hear what Xue Fu said? I've really been very good, the child looked at Yi Qingtang pleadingly. Yi Qingtang finally understood. Before the Holy Lord left earlier, she had not spoken to the Holy Sun. That was why the Holy Sun had reacted so violently to her refusal to speak just now. But Yi Qingtang had heard of this undead named Xue Fu in her previous life. He was one of the two guardians of the Temple of Shadows. The undead were naturally fleshless. But if their cultivation reached a high level, they could create an illusion of a body of flesh. Then, they looked just like a human. Yi Qingtang nodded slightly. Just one word was sufficient to make the child's eyes shine brightly. I still need this person. Let him live for a while. Yi Qingtang changed the subject and pointed out why she had spoken just now. Let him live. The child was taken aback. When he looked at Mu Shi, his eyes were filled with murderous intent. But, Ah Yao, he besmirched your things. He is not fit to live in this world. Yi Qingtang secretly took a deep breath. Her face became a little colder. So you are still unwilling to listen to me. Forget it, since that is the case, I'll go. With that, Yi Qingtang made it as she was to arise. When the child saw that Yi Qingtang was about to leave again, he panicked. He burst into tears and clung on to Yi Qingtang's leg. Chapter 12:30 How did I put this on? 1 Ah Yao, Yao. I know I was wrong. I'll listen to you, I'll listen to you. If you want to keep him alive, well keep him alive. I'll obey you as long as you don't leave. Yi Qingtang inwardly heaved a sigh of relief when she saw the child who was plastered to her kneel. She had been merely probing and was also looking for an excuse to leave the Temple of Shadows. But it turned out that the notoriously savage Holy Sun could not bear to be apart from the Holy Lord. Men, throw this smelly worm into the dungeon. The child turned and ordered. Now, Yi Qingtang could not leave even if she wanted to. She had no choice but to keep the situation as it was for the time being. Ah Yao, don't be angry. You've been away for so long, so you must be tired. Go and rest. The child spoke gingerly, seemingly terrified that Yi Qingtang would leave. Although Yi Qingtang maintained an expressionless face, she was emotionally exhausted. Heaven knew how much mental energy she had exhausted to put on a show in the Temple of Shadows, which had previously reigned supreme in Central Mainland. Yi Qingtang nodded. The child only slowly released Yi Qingtang when he saw that she had agreed. Yi Qingtang stretched out her hand and picked up the little white tiger, who had been knocked aside, and cuddled it. When the child saw that little white tiger was in Yi Qingtang's arms, his expression immediately turned murderous. The little white tiger was alarmed by his glare. Fuck, this little devil looks terrifying. I will escort the Holy Lord for a rest. Holy Lord's sleeping chambers have been cleaned every day in anticipation of the Holy Lord's return, said Xue Fu. Yi Qingtang nodded and walked towards her sleeping chambers with Xue Fu in the lead. As Yi Qingtang walked, the child's guarded expression immediately transformed. He turned to look at all the undead in the main hall with a vicious and cruel expression. Now that Ah Yao is back, if I find out that anyone has made her unhappy, a black flame suddenly burned in the child's hand. As his fist closed, the black smoke instantly exploded. The undead were all silent and nodded repeatedly. The Holy Lord was the supreme symbol of the Temple of Shadows, but it was the capricious and murderous Holy Sun that everyone feared. Yi Qingtang quickly arrived at the Holy Lord's sleeping chambers. When she entered, it was as if she had suddenly returned to normal human dwellings. The sleeping chamber was brightly lit with many lamps. Everything was clean and white. The entire atmosphere was completely incongruous compared to the dim Temple of Shadows. One wall of the sleeping chamber was hung with many portraits. The portraits all looked similar yet different. From emaciated to plump, the features of the person in the portrait had changed slowly from ugly and peculiar to beautiful. In the last portrait, the person looked exactly like Yi Qingtang. These must be the portraits of how the Holy Lord of Shadows slowly transformed from an undead to a human. Yi Qingtang slowly relaxed. Fuck, this Temple of Shadows is really terrifying. Did you see the last look that little devil shot at me? It was as if he wanted to skin me alive there and then. I think we better leave at the first opportunity. If your identity is revealed, we will both die here. The little white tiger hopped out of Yi Qingtang's arms. The capricious Holy Sun's power was probably in the heavenly venerate realm, not to mention the guardians and elders of the Temple of Shadows. Chapter 1231 How did I put this on? 2. With that kind of power, all they had to do was twitch their fingers, and both of them would be crushed. Do you think that I don't want to leave? Yi Qingtang heaved a wordless sigh. When she was in the main hall just now, she had felt as if she was sitting on a carpet of pins. How she longed to escape from this place. Just as Yi Qingtang was fretting, some noise suddenly came from her voice transmission stone. Miss Yi. Ling Yan's laughing voice slowly came from the voice transmission stone. Ling Yan. Yi Qingtang was slightly taken aback. Ling Yan had not contacted her for a long time. Miss Yi, are you getting used to the Central Mainland? Ling Yan's voice held a trace of amusement. You knew that I'm back, asked Yi Qingtang. I have always been concerned about Miss Yi's affairs. Yi Qingtang remained silent. But then she thought of something and said, Ling Yan, what do you know about the Temple of Shadows? Temple of Shadows? Why is Miss Yi suddenly asking about the Temple of Shadows? Thousands of years ago, the Temple of Shadows represented the height of the undead's power. But in the last few thousand years, it has sunk into obscurity. Rumor has it that their Holy Lord suddenly vanished, so they began to withdraw their influence. Even so, the Temple of Shadows has long been a very dangerous place, said Ling Yan. What if I told you, that I am now in the Temple of Shadows, said Yi Qingtang. Silence fell on the other end of the voice transmission stone. Yi Qingtang knew that Ling Yan was intelligent, so she told him how she had been mistakenly brought to the Temple of Shadows and posed as the Holy Lord. She hoped that Ling Yan would have some way to help her escape. However, quiet laughter came from the voice transmission stone. Yi Qingtang's brows immediately wrinkled. You're still in the mood for laughter. If him discovered, who knows how he'll die. Ling Yan burst into laughter again, but just as Yi Qingtang was so infuriated that she wanted to turn off the voice transmission stone, he said, Miss Yi does not need to worry. Since the undead of the Temple of Shadows think you're their Holy Lord, and since you look just like the Holy Lord, all you have to do is to temporarily maintain the status quo. There is no need to worry about anything else. He said it so casually. Yi Qingtang was speechless. But if Miss Yi is truly worried, then she can just leave. Considering how much the undead of the Temple of Shadows respects the Holy Lord, they will not make things difficult for Miss Yi. But Miss Yi had better not reveal her identity, said Ling Yan. Of course I will not reveal my identity. Yi Qingtang sighed again. As if she would dare to do that. Since Miss Yi is now connected to the Temple of Shadows, she can make use of that. Although the Temple of Shadows is not as powerful as it once was, it is not to be underestimated. The Holy Sun, Minggu, is a mutant undead. He is extremely powerful and is absolutely loyal to the Holy Lord. If Miss Yi uses this opportunity well, perhaps it will help Miss Yi attain her own goals, said Ling Yan. Her own goals. Yi Qingtang sank into deep thought. So Ling Yan had guessed the reason behind her coming to Central Mainland. The empty mainland surfaced in her mind, completely quiet and desolate. The ancient Yu clan was so powerful. Although she intended to snatch little Yu Yun from them, it would naturally be good if she could obtain more help. She did not yet know if the Temple of Shadows would be a blessing or a curse. The Holy Lord of the Temple of Shadows is not only powerful but also has many Dharma treasures. Miss Yi can borrow a few of them. Ling Yan continued. Chapter 1232, How did I put this on? 3. Yi Qingtang sighed. If she could properly grasp the opportunity that the Temple of Shadows presented, of course that would be the best. But now, she did not dare to grasp it. Just remaining undetected was a problem. I will take note of that, Yi Qingtang said. Miss Yi does not need to worry. Anytime you are troubled, I am always willing to lend a listening ear. Ling Yan's laughing voice rang out again. Yi Qingtang wanted to say a few more words, but there was a sudden knocking on the door of her sleeping chambers. Yi Qingtang immediately turned off the voice transmission stone and opened the door. An undead was standing outside the door, holding an intricate gold-gilded black box. When it saw Yi Qingtang, it immediately bowed. Holy Lord, the Holy Sun ordered me to bring all the Dharma artifacts to the Holy Lord. Yi Qingtang took the box and nodded slightly. The undead spoke again. Holy Lord, please rest assured that other than the incident with the 9 souls ring, no one has touched the Holy Lord's things. It doesn't matter, replied Yi Qingtang. The undead was slightly taken aback and then immediately responded. I have said too much. After all, only the Holy Lord herself can use her Dharma artifacts. Even if someone else obtained them, they would be useless. I should not have spoken out of turn. I will now go and accept my punishment. Before Yi Qingtang could speak, the undead covered its face and ran off to accept its punishment. Why are these undead all volunteering for punishment like masochists? The little white tiger poked its head out and muttered as it watched the disappearing figure. But Yi Qingtang stood there in a daze. Only the Holy Lord could use her things. What did it mean? She almost subconsciously turned on the voice transmission stone. Ling Yan, is it true that only the Holy Lord of the Temple of Shadows can use her Dharma artifacts? That is what the rumors say, replied Ling Yan. Then why did you ask me to borrow them? Yi Qingtang murmured. A laugh came from the other end of the voice transmission stone. That's what the rumors say, but since it is you, Miss Yi, I think you can use them. What does that mean? Yi Qingtang vaguely sensed that Ling Yan's words had a deeper meaning. But this time, Ling Yan did not reply. After waiting for a moment, Yi Qingtang realized that Ling Yan had turned off his voice transmission stone. Perhaps something had happened on his side. Yi Qingtang carried the gold-gilded black box and sat wordlessly on a chair. She wanted to open the box but realized that the black box was locked and could only be opened by an incantation. The incantation was carved on the outside of the black box, but it was in the language of the undead clan. Yi Qingtang could not read a single word. Forget it, even if I opened it, I probably can't use it. Yi Qingtang set the gold-gilded black box aside. But the little white tiger walked around the black box, then suddenly jumped into Yi Qingtang's lap. It stared at Yi Qingtang's face. Yi Qingtang was puzzled by the little white tiger's stare. But the little white tiger said, "No one else can use the Holy Lord's Dharma artifacts." Yi Qingtang nodded slightly. The little white tiger's gaze suddenly fell on Yi Qingtang's wrist. "Then how did you put the 9 souls rings on previously?" Yi Qingtang was startled. At that moment, she remembered that she had previously put on the 9 souls rings as the undead looked on. Yi Qingtang subconsciously felt her wrist. She could clearly feel the shape of the 9 souls rings. How had she put it on? Chapter 1233, Doubts, 1. Just as Yi Qingtang and the little white tiger were puzzling over the matter, in the Temple of Shadows, Holy Sun Minggu was looking extremely pleased. He returned to his room and tidied up his things. He looked at some small bones that had been painted gold and reached out his small hand to pick them up. "Minggu, what are you doing?" The guardian, Xue Fu, was leaning on the door with his hands crossed over his chest, watching Minggu as he bustled around. Minggu did not even raise his head but continued to focus on picking the small, golden bones. He said, "I want to string a necklace for Ah Yao." Xue Fu wiped his forehead and shook his head laughingly. "String your necklace later. Holy Sun Ming Wang has returned to the temple." The moment Xue Fu spoke, Minggu immediately raised his head and looked at Xue Fu with his dark eyes. "Elder brother has returned very quickly. I only just sent the news to him, and he's back already." With that, Minggu put away his things and ran to the main hall. The main hall currently felt rather constrained. A petite, exquisite-looking child wearing black and gold armor was standing in the center of the main hall. His exquisite little face was identical to Minggu's face. However, this child was surrounded by an evil aura. Several peculiar-looking figures quietly stood next to the child. The Temple of Shadows was the glory of the clan of the undead, and the Holy Lord was a powerful figure from the skeleton tribe within the clan of the undead. When the Holy Lord previously led everyone from the second domain to the central mainland, the skeleton tribe was not the only tribe in the clan of the undead to come along. The clan of the undead was divided into many different tribes. The Holy Lord and the powerful figures of the other tribes had led their tribes here together. Now, these powerful figures from the different tribes were tribe leaders in the central mainland. At the moment, the undead standing next to the child were some of these tribe leaders. "Ming Wang, is your news accurate? Has the Holy Lord really returned?" spoke a burly man who looked as vicious as a devil and stood more than 3 meters tall. Within the undead clan, he was the leader of the demon tribe. He turned his huge head to look at Ming Wang, who was only the size of his palm. Minggu sent the news. Ming Wang spoke calmly. His eyes were completely cold. The various tribe leaders exchanged a look but did not say anything else. The Holy Lord of the Temple of Shadows was a powerful figure of the skeleton tribe. Although the members of the main tribes of the clan of the undead gathered in the Temple of Shadows, in the past, the power of the Holy Lord had elevated the entire skeleton tribe's status in the Temple of Shadows. But, the Holy Lord had vanished a long time ago. Outsiders only knew that within the Temple of Shadows, the Holy Sun was renowned for his cruelty. But they did not know that the Temple of Shadows had two holy suns. One was Minggu, the other was Mingwang. If one said that Minggu was only cruel sometimes and childish at other times, then Mingwang was only cruel. Mingwang had been discussing some matters with these tribe leaders when he received news from his younger brother, Minggu, that the Holy Lord had returned to the temple. When the tribe leaders with Mingwang heard the news, some of them were curious and had tagged along. After a moment, Minggu rushed in. "Elder brother, you're back. Ah Yao. Ah Yao has really returned," Minggu said excitedly when he saw Mingwang. Chapter 1234, Doubts, 2. However, Mingwang remained expressionless as he looked at his younger brother's agitated face. "I know. Where is she?" Mingwang said expressionlessly. "Resting in her sleeping chambers." "Elder brother, I'm so happy that Ah Yao is really back." Minggu was in a rush to share his joy with Mingwang. But before he could finish speaking, Mingwang swept a cold look at him. Minggu's remaining words stuck in his throat. "Minggu." Mingwang raised his head slightly and narrowed his black eyes, which swept across his younger brother's face. "You are too noisy." Minggu was stunned. When he saw the chill in Mingwang's eyes, he subconsciously shrank back. The undead had no twins. But he and Mingwang were a rare pair of twins and were also mutant undead. They were born with immense abilities, but compared to Mingwang, he was much weaker. Minggu held a bone-deep reverence for his elder brother. "How do you know that she is Ah Yao?" Mingwang asked coldly. Minggu was slightly taken aback. "Ah Yao is Ah Yao, of course I know, idiot." Mingwang grunted coldly. "Since the Holy Lord is back, we should follow the rules of the Temple of Shadows." Mingwang did not look at his younger brother again. He turned to a slender girl with an enchanting face, who was standing next to him. "Guardian of Ghosts, go and make your preparations and invite the Holy Lord to the Hall of Gloom." Meanwhile, Yi Qingtang was still discussing the matter of the 9 souls rings with the little white tiger. Not long after, someone knocked on the room door. Yi Qingtang had no choice but to put aside her bewilderment and open the door. The door opened to reveal a scantily clad and enchanting-looking girl lounging against the door. When she suddenly saw Yi Qingtang at the doorway, a look of surprise flashed across her green eyes. But the surprise instantly vanished, and she smiled charmingly at Yi Qingtang and spoke. "Your subordinate, Lady Ghost, greets the Holy Lord. The Holy Lord's return is a joyful event. Please Holy Lord, come to the Hall of Gloom." Hall of Gloom. Yi Qingtang looked at Lady Ghost standing before her. An ominous foreboding rose in her heart, but she maintained her composure and nodded slightly. With the little white tiger in tow, Yi Qingtang walked with Lady Ghost to the Hall of Gloom. Along the way, she thought about what she was soon to encounter. The Hall of Gloom was where ceremonies were carried out in the Temple of Shadows and was hundreds of meters underground. After a long walk, Yi Qingtang finally came to a broad space. It was a grand hall, so large that its end could not be seen at a glance. When she raised her head, she could not even see the hall ceiling. At first glance, it looked like a public square bathed in darkness. A huge picture of a skeleton was carved in the center of the Hall of Gloom. Around it were circular pictures in which black, glittering gems were embedded. Only a green flame lit the Hall of Gloom. It was both dim and oppressive. Minggu and the other tribe leaders who were already in the Hall of Gloom looked at Yi Qingtang as she walked over slowly. Their first glance shocked them. The girl in front of them looked exactly like their long-lost Holy Lord. Is this girl really the Holy Lord? The leader of the demon tribe looked at Yi Qingtang and lowered his voice to whisper to the leader of the goblin tribe, who was standing next to him. Chapter 1235, Doubts, 3. the leader of the goblin tribe was a slender man. He was extremely handsome but a little effeminate. He secretly studied Yi Qingtang and said softly, "The Holy Lord vanished a long time ago. No one knows why she vanished and where she has been all this time. I heard that those who first met the Holy Lord this time only coincidentally found her along the way. I think it's rather peculiar. Could it be that this Holy Lord is an impostor?" The leader of the demon tribe asked. "We don't know yet. But Ming Wang must also be suspicious of her identity, which is why he is carrying out this ceremony. We can just wait and see." The leader of the goblin tribe laughed softly. A sharp look suddenly flashed across his eyes. "If she is fake, she will certainly die," the leader of the demon tribe said with a cold laugh. At that moment, Yi Qingtang had just stepped into the dim hall. She vaguely sensed that something was amiss, and the ominous foreboding in her heart grew stronger. She tried her best to maintain her composure. Her gaze swept across all the undead present. Among the numerous undead, Yi Qingtang saw a few figures with powerful breaths. They looked extremely peculiar. Their appearance and breaths clearly showed that they were different from Xue Fu and the skeleton tribe she had met earlier. In her previous life, Yi Qingtang had heard many things about the undead. Naturally, she also knew that the clan of the undead was divided into many tribes. When she saw the breaths and auras of these undead, she thought that they were probably the various legendary tribe leaders within the clan of the undead. Besides these tribe leaders, Yi Qingtang also saw two little fellows who looked exactly alike. They were standing right in front of her. Although they were identical, the two children gave off different airs. Yi Qingtang was stunned. Ah Yao, the moment Minggu saw Yi Qingtang, he charmingly reached out to ask for a hug. But before he could take a step, the expressionless Ming Wang, who was standing next to him, held him back. Ming Wang raised his eyes slightly. His calm black eyes looked straight at Yi Qingtang. His sharp gaze was clearly searching. Yi Qingtang kept her face still and met his gaze directly. Although she was inwardly shocked, how Ming Wang acted towards Ming Gu clearly showed that the former constrained the latter. In the entire Temple of Shadows, there must be only a few who were imposing enough to dare to act like that towards the Holy Sun, Ming Gu. Furthermore, these children were identical, twins were rare in the clan of the undead. Even when they appeared, they were certainly mutant undead. Rumor had it that the Holy Son of the Temple of Shadows was a rare mutant undead. However, when twins were born in the clan of the undead, ultimately, only one could survive. Hence, everyone naturally assumed that the other child must have died long ago. But now, Yi Qingtang realized that the rumors that had reached the outside world were probably wrong. The child who looked just like Ming Gu must be Ming Gu's brother. However, although they were brothers, the children were like chalk and cheese. "We greet the Holy Lord." The tribe leaders now went forward and gave shallow bows to Yi Qingtang. Yi Qingtang nodded slightly, but she was inwardly on full alert. Ming Wang, who was standing nearby, spoke coldly. "Holy Lord, please ascend the tower." "Ascend the tower?" Yi Qingtang was dumbfounded. She looked around with the corner of her eyes, but she was surrounded by flat ground. Where was the tower? Yi Qingtang did not make any move. All the undead present were staring at her. Chapter 1236, Pagoda of the Dead, 1. At that moment, Yi Qingtang almost collapsed emotionally. Legends of the Temple of Shadows usually described its power and mystery but had never recorded what it was like inside. Come to think of it, no outsider would know about these matters. Now, Yi Qingtang was at her wit's end. Just as Yi Qingtang was about to secretly search for the location of the pagoda, Ling Yan's voice suddenly rang out. At that moment, Ling Yan's voice was extremely soft, and only Yi Qingtang could hear it. "Miss Yi, don't move." Ling Yan. When Yi Qingtang heard Ling Yan's voice, it was as if heavenly music sounded in her ears. However, she was in the Hall of Gloom, and all the undead had their eyes fixed on her, so she could not show the slightest sign that something unusual was happening and could not reply. At that moment, Yi Qingtang could only follow Ling Yan's instructions and remain expressionlessly in her original spot. She looked at Ming Wang. Ming Wang had been secretly studying Yi Qingtang's movements. After a moment, Ming Wang suddenly shouted coldly. "How dare you!" This low shout so frightened Yi Qingtang that she broke out in a cold sweat. At Ming Wang's shout, an undead kneeled down in a panic. I deserve to die. How can there be any delay during a ritual? You can't even get a small thing right. Ming Wang's gaze suddenly fell on the kneeling undead. His small gray hand opened suddenly. The next moment, his fingers suddenly arched. The undead kneeling on the ground was instantly crushed by an invisible force. Its entire body transformed into a pile of ashes before their eyes. Yi Qingtang was shocked. One must know that, the undead who had just died had the power of arcane supremacy fifth heaven. Even she was no match for him. But Ming Wang had crushed such a powerful figure into powder without even touching him. This Ming Wang was truly terrible. The Holy Lord's return is a joyous occasion. There is no need to spoil the mood over such a small matter. Let me, Lady Ghost, activate the Pagoda of the Dead for the Holy Lord, said Lady Ghost. With that, she leaped up and suddenly took down one of the lamps that were hanging everywhere. The moment she took down the lamp, the ground in front of the Hall of Gloom began to shake. With a might quake, black fumes of death suddenly spurted out from the huge skeleton's mouth that was carved on the ground. The endless fumes of death entwined to form a mirage of the Tower of the Dead. An altar suddenly appeared at the top of the pagoda. Holy Lord, please ascend the pagoda. Lady Ghost descended to the ground and bowed to Yi Qingtang. Yi Qingtang looked at the unreal, almost partially transparent pagoda of the dead. Her heart beat like a drum. How was she supposed to step into a pagoda that seemed to be made of smoke and mist? However, given the circumstances, she had no choice but to steel herself and ascend the pagoda. Yi Qingtang secretly took a deep breath and walked step by step towards the pagoda of the dead. But she could clearly sense numerous eyes behind her, watching her every move. Yi Qingtang stepped into the pagoda of the dead. Although it looked unreal, it felt solid. Yi Qingtang had no choice but to continue upwards. Yi Qingtang could clearly sense that Ming Wang and the tribe leaders did not believe that she was the Holy Lord of the Temple of Shadows. This was probably a test of her identity. At that moment, Ling Yan's voice rang out again. Miss Yi, how much do you know about the Holy Lord of Shadows? Chapter 1237, Pagoda of the Dead, 2, I've heard a little, Yi Qingtang said softly as she gingerly walked across the pagoda of the dead. The Holy Lord of Shadows was supremely powerful in Central Mainland. She commanded millions of undead, and all the clans in the mainland bowed to her. Miss Yi, if you want the undead of the Temple of Shadows to believe that you are the Holy Lord, you need to imitate her attitude and behavior. The Holy Lord of Shadows is not as easygoing a mistress as Miss Yi. I am now in the pagoda of the dead. What am I supposed to do? Yi Qingtang vaguely understood Ling Yan's meaning, but it did not apply to her current situation. The pagoda of the dead is a sacred pagoda in the Temple of Shadows. Millions of souls are gathered within it. Every so often, the Holy Lord of Shadows needs to release some of these twisted souls and pray for blessings for the entire clan of the undead. Miss Yi only needs to walk to the top of the pagoda and sing the incantation of the undead at the altar, said Ling Yan. What incantation? The nearer she got to the top of the pagoda, the more Yi Qingtang felt worried. Ling Yan was quiet for a moment. Then, he sang an obscure incantation of the undead. Yi Qingtang had never come across this incantation of the undead. Even with Ling Yan smoothly singing it in her ear, it sounded very foreign. However, She had already arrived at the top of the pagoda of the dead and was standing next to the altar. At the bottom of the pagoda of the dead, Ming Wang and the other tribe leaders were closely following Yi Qingtang's every move. With Ling Yan continually repeating the incantation, Yi Qingtang finally memorized some of it. She somewhat awkwardly imitated the incantation that Ling Yan had spoken and sang the incantation of release. As Yi Qingtang sang, numerous black shadows suddenly poured out of the altar. The black shadows wailed continually. They coiled upwards as if they were enclosed in a whirlwind and rose towards the ceiling of the Hall of Gloom. The wailing of the souls reverberated through the entire hall. However, at that moment, Ming Wang's eyes narrowed slightly. Something was amiss. As millions of souls were released, their wails echoed in his ears for a long time before slowly dissipating. The souls seemed to vanish in the darkness. "Miss Yi, you can go down now." With that, Yi Qingtang climbed down the pagoda of the dead. Ming Wang was expressionless. His gaze swept across Yi Qingtang's face, and he said, "Holy Lord, you must be tired after we have troubled you to conduct the ritual today." Yi Qingtang felt as if she had just had a brush with death. If not for Ling Yan, she would have been completely exposed. After the ritual ended, Yi Qingtang went back to her sleeping chambers. As Yi Qingtang left, many undead also left the Hall of Gloom. Only the tribe leaders, elders, guardians, Ming Gu, and Ming Wang remained behind. "This holy lord is probably an impostor," the leader of the goblin tribe swept a look at all the undead present as he spoke. The leader of the demon tribe also frowned. "I think she is most likely a fake. When she sang the incantation just now, it was clearly different from how she sang it previously." They felt that the Holy Lord's sudden return was suspicious. Now, although Yi Qingtang had followed the rituals and completed them in a satisfactory manner, there were many differences compared to how the Holy Lord had completed the rituals in the past. "I remember that the Holy Lord used to fly to the top of the pagoda. This is the first time I have seen her walk up step by step," Lady Ghost said with a soft laugh. The incantation was also rather jerky. It was completely unlike the Holy Lord's cold and arrogant air, the leader of the demon tribe said with a frown. Chapter 1238, Pagoda of the Dead, 3, Don't talk nonsense, she is Ah Yao. Ming Gu panicked when he saw that everyone was beginning to doubt Yi Qingtang's identity. Only senior members of Clan of the Undead know the incantation of blessing. If she is an impostor, how would she know it? There were a few elders in the Clan of the Undead who have left the Temple of Shadows. "It is possible that they leaked it," said the leader of the Goblin tribe. "I don't think so. The Holy Lord has been gone for so long. Without the Pagoda of the Dead, she naturally had no need to sing the incantation of blessing. It is natural that the recitation was a little choppy. Also, no one knows what the Holy Lord has experienced during this long interval. It is normal for habits to change." Xue Fu agreed. "Change? Aren't these changes too big? Since when has the Holy Lord been so affable?" The leader of the demon tribe grunted coldly. "I already said that she might have had some encounter that caused her personality to change. Why won't you listen?" The panic on Ming Gu's face instantly turned murderous. "Ah Yao has already put on the 9 souls rings, how can she be a fake? In this world, who but Ah Yao herself can wear her Dharma artifacts?" The tribe leaders were all stunned by Ming Gu's words. They immediately looked at Ming Wang. "Ming Wang, what do you think?" Ming Wang had remained silent up to that point. At that moment, he raised his head slightly. His black eyes were narrowed slightly and had an icy look. "We have ample time. We will eventually find out if she is authentic or not." Ming Gu was shocked when he saw Ming Wang's icy expression. "Elder brother," Ming Wang swept a cold look at him. "Shut up, you idiot. If she is really Ah Yao, I certainly will not hurt her. If she isn't, I will make sure she begs for death." Ming Gu bit his lips. He looked at his elder brother who was filled with murderous intent and forced his fear down. He argued. But the Nine Souls Ring, how can you prove that the Nine Souls Ring is real? Ming Wang looked at Ming Gu coldly. That's right. The Nine Souls Ring was stolen, and we only encountered the Holy Lord while in pursuit of the ring. In that interval, the Nine Souls Ring was with that human. If someone is pretending to the Holy Lord, then she must be in cahoots with that human to secretly swap the ring and confuse us, Lady Ghost said. Ming Gu glared at Lady Ghost furiously. All this is just our conjecture. We cannot be certain of anything. If she is an impostor, then it won't matter. But if she is really the Holy Lord and we offend her, we will be guilty of a terrible crime. Xue Fu spoke carefully when he saw that Ming Wang and the tribe leaders did not believe in Yi Qingtang's identity. With that, silence fell in the Hall of Gloom. It was just this worry that prevented them from acting hastily. It was no joking matter to offend the Holy Lord. I will investigate this matter, Ming Wang said calmly. With Ming Wang on the job, we don't need to worry. The tribe leaders nodded and left successively. However, they all had some suspicions of this holy lady who had suddenly returned. Only Ming Gu was unwavering in his faith. Meanwhile, Ling Yan was rubbing the voice transmission stone in his hand. A faint smile lurked in the corners of his mouth. When the little azure dragon saw Ling Yan's expression, it secretly sneered. Honestly, was it your plan for Yi Qingtang to go to the Temple of Shadows? It was already part of your plan, wasn't it? Said the little azure dragon. Chapter 1239, Authentic or Fake, 1, Ling Yan chuckled. It will be very difficult for Miss Yi to single-handedly take on the ancient Yu clan. So this was all part of your plan? The little azure dragon widened its eyes slightly. Ling Yan was truly brilliant to be able to manipulate people so precisely from 1,000 miles away. Ling Yan laughed but did not reply. In the Temple of Shadows, Yi Qingtang had returned to her sleeping chambers. But the moment she recalled the events of the Hall of Gloom, she felt terrified again. If Ling Yan had not known the incantation of blessing, Yi Qingtang would have been exposed there and then. When she thought about it, Yi Qingtang could not help but take out the voice transmission stone. Ling Yan. Yes, I'm here. Ling Yan's rather indolent voice rang out from the voice transmission stone. Thank you, said Yi Qingtang. Ling Yan chuckled. If Miss Yi really wants to thank me, why not marry me? Yi Qingtang was just beginning to feel a little touched, but Ling Yan's words immediately dispelled her emotions. Marry him? As if. Miss Yi has merely lulled the suspicions of Ming Wang and the tribe leaders. But in order to completely dispel their suspicions, Miss Yi needs to begin imitating some of the Holy Lord's behavior in the Temple of Shadows. Ling Yan changed the subject. Yi Qingtang grew serious. I don't know much about the Holy Lord of the Temple of Shadows. Miss Yi only needs to listen to me. The Holy Lord of the Temple of Shadows is unpredictable. She usually shows a smiling face to everyone. Ling Yan slowly introduced Yi Qingtang to some of the behaviors of the Holy Lord of the Temple of Shadows. The Holy Lord of the Temple of Shadows used to be supremely powerful in this mainland. Although she had the appearance of a slender girl, no one dared to offend her in the least. What was most terrifying about the Holy Lord was her capricious nature. Although she was always smiling, she killed without blinking an eye. Even when she was attacked by powerful figures from the second domain, she had chatted and laughed while carrying out a bloody slaughter. Many secretly called her the smiling god of death. As Yi Qingtang carefully listened to Ling Yan's synopsis, she got the general idea. After speaking to Ling Yan for a while, the two broke off their connection. In just one short day, Yi Qingtang had experienced a severe shock. In a powerful place like the Temple of Shadows, a single slip would lead to death. What was even more frightening was that Ming Wang and the tribe leaders had begun to suspect her. One misstep and she was dead. If possible, Yi Qingtang wished to escape as quickly as possible. But given the present circumstances, she was unable to leave. She had no choice but to slowly dispel their doubts to save herself. In the Temple of Shadows, Ming Wang was standing in the empty main hall, looking at the black bone throne. His face was expressionless. In the gloom, an image seemed to appear on the black bone throne. Ming Wang's expression flickered. There was a sound of soft footsteps. Ming Wang suddenly raised his hand, and with a wave, the image on the black bone throne vanished completely. Holy Sun. A stooped old man walked over slowly. He was wearing a large black cape, but white bones on his back pierced the cape and could be seen from the outside. What did the human say? Ming Wang turned to look at the old man. The old man was the master of the Hall of Justice in the Temple of Shadows. He specialized in various forms of torture. He had millions of ways to open the most tight-lipped mouths. Chapter 1240, Authentic or Fake. 2. Ming Wang had his suspicions regarding the Nine Souls Ring incident, so he ordered the master of the Hall of Justice to go to the dungeons to interrogate Wuxia. Reporting to the Holy Sun, the human says that he did not swap the Nine Souls Ring. I also searched his space ring and found no trace of the Nine Souls Ring, the master of the Hall of Justice reported. It was just a simple sentence, but anyone who had suffered his torture would not be able to hide any secrets. Ming Wang frowned slightly. The suspicions in his heart were not yet dispelled. There's one more thing, speak. The Luo family sent an invitation to tomorrow's birthday banquet for their grand elder. As he spoke, the master of the Hall of Justice placed the invitation in Ming Wang's hand. I am informing the Holy Sun because the Holy Lord is resting, and I am afraid to disturb her. Ming Wang took the invitation. A strange look flashed across his black eyes. The Luo family. Luo Tufeng must be more than 1,000 years old now. Ming Wang suddenly asked. The Luo family was one of the ancient clans in central mainland. Their foundations were solid, and their grand elder, Luo Tufeng, was outstandingly powerful. His position in this mainland was a lofty one. The Luo family had nothing to do with the Temple of Shadows. Although their bases of power were close to each other, they usually minded their own business. Yes, the master of the Hall of Justice said. Ming Wang narrowed his eyes slightly, as if he suddenly thought of something. Since that is the case and since the Holy Lord has just returned to the temple, she might as well take the opportunity to let the outside world know that she has returned. Send this invitation to the Holy Lord. The master of the Hall of Justice was somewhat taken aback. He took the invitation and brought it to Yi Qingtang's sleeping chambers. In her sleeping chambers, Yi Qingtang was familiarizing herself with the Holy Lord's behavioral patterns. Fortunately, there were many portraits of the Holy Lord in the sleeping chamber. Together with Ling Yan's description, Yi Qingtang began to grasp some of the Holy Lord's expressions. Yi Qingtang opened the room door in response to a knock and took the Luo family's invitation from the master of the Hall of Justice. Yi Qingtang could not help but frown slightly when she saw Luo Qufeng's name on the invitation. Yi Qingtang had known this Luo Qufeng in her previous life. He was an extremely talented and powerful figure in central mainland. Now, he must be about 1,000 years old. In her previous life, he had been a powerful tyrant in this mainland. In her previous life, the truth about Yi Qingtang's heart of the demon god had been revealed sometime after she had arrived in central mainland. This Luo Qufeng had ordered the Luo family to pursue her in an attempt to rob her of the heart of the demon god. Yi Qingtang had narrowly escaped death a few times, but they had all been close calls. But it turned out that, in this life, she was going to attend Luo Qufeng's birthday banquet in the capacity of the Holy Lord of the Temple of Shadows. Yi Qingtang was not stupid. She guessed that this invitation was another test. In the Temple of Shadows, she could use the excuse of remaining in her sleeping chambers to escape observation. But if she went out, sure enough, the next afternoon, Yi Qingtang saw a group of undead standing in the main hall of the Temple of Shadows. There were about a dozen of them, and one of them was the hall master. These undead were chosen to accompany Yi Qingtang to the Luo family to present her good wishes. On the surface, they were accompanying her, but Yi Qingtang knew that Ming Wang had sent these undead to secretly observe her. Chapter 1241, Authentic or Fake, 3, Yao. The moment Ming Gu saw Yi Qingtang, he scuttled over and pressed his little face against her. He clutched Yi Qingtang's leg and hugged it. Meanwhile, Ming Wang looked at Yi Qingtang expressionlessly. Although his expression was civil, he was clearly secretly observing her. Yi Qingtang secretly took a deep breath. A trace of a smile suddenly appeared in the corner of her mouth. She reached out and picked up Ming Gu. "Be good and wait here for me." Ming Gu was shocked by such tenderness. His eyes opened wide in agitation. When he saw that familiar smile, Ming Gu hugged Yi Qingtang around the neck. Yao, I will certainly wait obediently in the temple for you." Yao had finally smiled. When Ming Wang, who was standing nearby, saw the smile on Yi Qingtang's face, a surge of emotion involuntarily flashed across his eyes. But he quickly forced it down. As Yi Qingtang teased Ming Gu, she secretly observed Ming Wang from the corner of her eye. It looked like Ling Yan was accurate. Yi Qingtang had been too constrained previously because of her uneasiness. This had aroused even more suspicions. Now, she only needed to properly act the role of Holy Lord and slowly dispel these suspicions in order to preserve her life. Ling Yan had said that there were two Holy Lords in the Temple of Shadows, one was capricious, and the other was gloomy. In the presence of the Holy Lord, Ming Gu acted like an immature child. The Holy Lord also treated him like a child, doting on him and guiding him. As a result, Ming Gu had become very attached to the Holy Lord. "All right, I have to go." Yi Qingtang saw that she was having an effect and put Ming Gu down. Ming Gu seemed to be in a trance of delight over the hug. He held his little fists in front of his chest and gazed blissfully at Yi Qingtang. This time, Yi Qingtang did not bring the little white tiger along. After the preparations were complete, she led the dozen undead to the Luo house. The Luo family had a great influence in the area. All the powerful figures in the neighboring area had come to present their good wishes at the Grand Elder's birthday banquet. It was evening, and rays from the setting sun were scattered over the ground. The enormous Luo house stood proudly in the dying light of the evening. An endless stream of guests arrived at the Luo house. Dozens of Luo family guards stood at attention outside the main door. It was a magnificent sight. The Luo house was gaily decorated and brightly lit with numerous lamps. A white-robed youth slowly walked among the guests. A pair of pure white wings grew from his back. In the light of the lamps, they looked exceptionally pristine and beautiful. "Uncle, who exactly is Luo Tufeng? I saw many alien clans here too." The youth with the white wings widened his blue eyes and looked at a tall, handsome man. This man also had a pair of white wings growing from his back. They were similar to the youth's wings except that his feathers were slightly gray and seemed to be stronger. They were from the clan of Winged People. Their Palace of Wings had received an invitation to Luo Qufeng's birthday banquet, and they had made a special trip to offer their good wishes. Luo Tufeng is the Grand Elder of the Luo family. He participated in the battle between the Central Mainland and the Second Domain. He is extremely powerful but has seldom appeared in recent years. However, he still maintains his former status, the winged man said with a smile. "The battle with the Second Domain? Uncle, didn't you participate in it too?" The winged youth asked curiously. Chapter 1242, Luo Family, 1. One must know that the battle between the Central Mainland and the Second Domain was earth-shattering. Although it had happened thousands of years ago, it continued to be spoken of. The winged man laughed and shook his head. At that time, your uncle was not powerful enough and did not actually enter the main battlefield. I only participated in other battles. The winged youth seemed rather puzzled. However, he was clearly curious about this historical battle. Uncle, I heard that the battle was extremely intense and that Central Mainland suffered terrible losses. That's right. The winged man nodded slightly. If the Holy Lord of the Temple of Shadows had not led the senior members of the temple in an attempt to turn the tide, the battle might have been lost. The Holy Lord of the Temple of Shadows? Hasn't she been missing for a long time? Before the winged man could answer, the current master of the Luo family, Luo Feng, slowly walked over. He immediately stopped talking and advanced. Master of the Luo family. Brother Lan, how have you been? Luo Feng looked to be about middle-aged, but he was more than 100 years old. Even so, he looked much younger than the winged man, who looked like he was in his 20s. So, it was not strange for Luo Feng to call him Brother Lan. I am sorry that I am unable to personally congratulate old Master Luo on his birthday. I hope the master of the Luo family will convey my good wishes, the winged man, who was called Lan Yu, said with a smile. You are too kind. The Luo family and the Palace of Wings have always been on good terms. There is no need to stand on ceremony, said Luo Feng with a smile. Luo Feng chatted with Lan Yu for a while before he went to greet his other guests. Numerous guests had come to congratulate Luo Zhufeng at his birthday banquet, many of which were powerful and influential. Lan Yu was just about to continue his previous conversation with his nephew when a petite little fellow with a huge wine gourd on its back dashed over. This little fellow looked somewhat like a cat with a pair of large, furry ears. Its entire body was covered with fluffy hairs, and it wore an intricately worked set of leather armor. It jumped about gaily, its large, fluffy tail swaying lazily behind it. Lan Yu laughed when he saw this little fellow, who stood only as high as his knee, approach. Mi Chiu, the birthday banquet has not even officially started. Why are you already drunk? The furry little fellow swept a glance at Lan Yu and simply sat down, leaning on Lan Ye's leg. Its large fluffy tail curled up and took down the huge wine gourd on its back. It held the gourd firmly with 4 small claws and used its sharp teeth to open the lid of the gourd. The fragrance of wine spread from the gourd. It held the gourd full of good wine and gulped it down. Burp. The master doesn't like what you're saying. Since when has the master been sober? The small and adorable Mi Chiu actually spoke in the careless tones of a man. Although Mi Chiu looked adorable and harmless, it was actually part of the Chiu clan and was vicious by nature. The Chiu clan was actually an animal clan. Although they looked like animals, they acted like humans. No matter how adorable they looked, they were usually very aggressive. Besides that, the Chiu clan was known for their love of wine. Which was why members of the Chiu clan were often seen carrying large wine gourds on their backs. The Chiu clan was often in a half-drunken stupor. But their capacity for liquor was shocking. Chapter 1243, Luo Family, 2, Today is Luo Qufeng's birthday banquet. You better restrain yourself a little, Lan Yu said with a laugh. Mi Chiu ignored him and took another gulp of wine. The master is only here to make up the numbers. I'm not involved with the birthday banquet later, but, the Luo family's wine is really fragrant. Before you go, remember to remind the master to bring a few carriages of it back with me. Burp. Lan Yu shook his head wordlessly. It was the nature of the Chiu clan to have no respect for anyone. They not only wanted to bring back wine when attending a birthday banquet, but they even wanted a few carriages of it. The winged youth standing nearby was still young and had not had much contact with the Chiu clan. His youthful blue eyes widened as he looked at the little fellow leaning on his uncle's leg and drinking itself into a stupor. He was filled with curiosity. It was just a little fellow, yet why did it keep referring to itself as master? Besides the winged people and the Chiu clan, there were many alien clans at tonight's birthday banquet. They all looked rather strange. Some were vicious-looking, some were gray, and some were furry. The winged youth was still wondering to himself when he felt the ground beneath his feet begin to shake. At that moment, a few giants, who stood dozens of meters tall, slowly walked in among the guests. The ground beneath everyone's feet shook with every step that they took. "Burp, even the giant clan is here." Mi Chiu took a look, then gulped a mouthful of wine, and muttered to himself. The giants were huge. They were especially conspicuous in the crowd. However, the Luo family had already prepared special seats for them. The giants looked like small mountains piled up in the Luo house courtyard when they sat down. A female giant was wearing a huge dress. When she sat, her skirt drifted down and whipped up a wild wind that almost sent Mi Chiu, who was sitting nearby, flying. The entire courtyard was bustling. Many guests had brought rich gifts. The evening sank into the night, and the birthday banquet was about to start. Luo Feng stood amidst the guests. He swept a glance over everyone present. However, the warm smile that hung on his lips seemed a little strange. "Elder brother, it's about time. Grand Elder and the others are about to come over." A middle-aged man, who looked very similar to Luo Feng, walked over. He was Luo Feng's younger brother, Luo Qi, and also the deputy master of the Luo family. Luo Feng nodded and walked to the front of the courtyard. He said to all the guests, "Today is the birthday of the Grand Elder of our Luo family. Thank you, everyone, for coming. Allow me to toast you." With that, Luo Feng gave a signal to the servants. Hundreds of servants immediately brought out wine and served the guests. The master finally gets to taste this wine. Mi Chiu took a cup of wine and drank it without a second word. The speed at which it drank the wine shocked the servant who had brought the wine. It was not time to drink yet. "All right, hand all this over to the master." While the servant was still in a state of shock, Mi Chiu stood on its back legs and took the entire tray and all the wine on it. Lan Yu, who was standing nearby, sighed helplessly. When all the wine had been distributed, Luo Feng raised his cup. "Please." With that, he emptied his cup. Many had heard that the Luo family's wine was of an excellent vintage. They emptied their cups. The wine was indeed excellent. Chapter 1244, Luo Family, 3, However, just as Luo Feng and his guests were emptying their cups, the guards at the door suddenly announced loudly, "The Holy Lord of the Temple of Shadows is here to present her good wishes." The pronouncement made by that piercing voice dumbfounded everyone. The Holy Lord of the Temple of Shadows? Have I heard wrongly? Perhaps they have announced the wrong name. Hasn't the Holy Lord of the Temple of Shadows been missing for thousands of years? It was mostly the external world that spread the rumors that the Holy Lord had gone missing. The Temple of Shadows itself has never confirmed the rumor. Perhaps the Holy Lord was never missing in the first place. The guests all discussed the matter avidly. Even the master of the Luo family, Luo Feng, could not help but show a trace of surprise. They had invited the Temple of Shadows out of courtesy because the two centers of power were near each other. They had previously sent many similar invitations, but the Temple of Shadows had never sent a representative. They had, at most, sent a gift. But it turned out that, the Temple of Shadows had not only come this time, but the person who came was the Holy Lord, who had vanished for thousands of years. In Central Mainland, there was no real distinction between good and evil. Here, might was right. The Temple of Shadows had been supremely powerful in Central Mainland. Many people had the utmost regard for it and did not dare to offend it in the least. But with the disappearance of the Holy Lord of the Temple of Shadows, the might of the Temple of Shadows had waned for the last few thousand years. However, its former status was still entrenched in many hearts. Just as everyone was discussing the matter, a slender figure slowly walked through the moonlight and appeared before them. A breathtakingly beautiful young girl stood in the glow of the moonlight. She walked over gracefully with an elusive smile on her face. Her slightly lifted eyes were more beautiful than the moon. Dozens of undead followed the young girl closely. A hush instantly fell over the entire courtyard. Those who thought the guards had announced the wrong name now stared at the surpassingly beautiful girl. She was so aloof and so beautiful, under the mingled light from the moon and the lamps, her flawless face looked unreal. Everyone looked at the young girl as she stepped forward. Many secretly gulped. One must know that the Holy Lord of the Temple of Shadows was the most powerful symbol of the Temple of Shadows. She was the one who previously led the Temple of Shadows to its peak. But the Holy Lord had vanished for a long time, and everyone thought that she was never coming back. But it turned out that, they were now seeing her in the flesh. When Lan Yu, who was standing nearby, saw the young girl, his eyes were filled with astonishment. The beautiful women in his memories were swiftly overlaid by the present. Burp, am I really drunk? Why do I seem to see the Holy Lord of the Temple of Shadows? Mi Chiu burped drunkenly as he squinted at the figure, his brow wrinkled in bewilderment. I must be really drunk. Yi Qingtang slowly walked through the courtyard under everyone's shocked gaze. A small smile lurked in the corner of her mouth. Her amused eyes were aloof as she swept a casual gaze over everyone's face. That's right, that's what the Holy Lord of the Temple of Shadows should look like. Yi Qingtang inwardly noted everyone's reaction. She only heaved a secret sigh of relief when she peeked at those near her from the corner of her eye and saw that their expressions were normal. Chapter 1245, Birthday Celebration, 1. Just as everyone's gaze converged on Yi Qingtang, a loud laugh suddenly rang out. A tall, handsome old man slowly walked over. This old man's hair was graying, and he had a long white beard. Although traces of his age could be seen in the wrinkles around his eyes were brighter and more piercing than those of a man in his prime. Holy Lord of Shadows, it has been a long time. The old man smiled as he walked towards Yi Qingtang. This old man was the grand elder of the Luo family, Luo Zhufeng. Luo Zhufeng had participated in the battle with the powerful cultivators from the second domain and so knew the Holy Lord of Shadows, who had led troops to join the battle. Yi Qingtang maintained her composure when she saw Luo Zhufeng, who had sent people to hunt her down in her previous life, walk over. The smile on her lips deepened, and she said coolly, Luo Zhufeng, it's been a long time. Luo Zhufeng said with a smile, I have not seen the Holy Lord since that battle thousands of years ago. What a joy it is to see you once more today. Yi Qingtang smiled blandly but did not reply. When the Temple of Shadows was at its peak, powers like the Luo family were illustrious in central mainland, but still, they could not compare with the Temple of Shadows. Men, invite the Holy Lord of Shadows to take a seat. With that, Luo Zhufeng gestured for Yi Qingtang to enter. The banquet had not yet started, and besides the huge giants, no one else was seated. Yi Qingtang sat down naturally while maintaining her composure. She continued to smile faintly while her gaze remained detached as if she was above everything. The undead who followed Yi Qingtang also sat around her. Luo Zhufeng made some small talk with Yi Qingtang. She either expertly responded with a few words or smiled wordlessly. The undead from the Temple of Shadows noted it all. The birthday banquet had been about to begin, but many were shocked by the arrival of the Holy Lord of Shadows. Now that Yi Qingtang and the undead were seated, Luo Zhufeng also smilingly invited the other guests to take their seats. Burp, isn't it rather warm? After Mi Chiu sat down with Lan Yu and the others, it felt that its surroundings were rather warm. It turned its head to look around and saw a scarlet figure sitting nearby. It was a man from the Blaze clan. The Blaze clan was one of the fire tribes. They had no flesh, blood, or bones. Their entire bodies were composed of flint and lava. Their bodies were always aflame, and they were highly resistant to any kind of fire-related attacks. The special characteristics of the Blaze clan meant that whenever they appeared, the temperature of the surroundings rose. Their blazing fire was only extinguished at the moment of their death. "Can you sit farther away from me?" a cold voice suddenly said in the Blaze clan member's ear. A youth from the Ice clan was sitting next to the man from the Blaze clan. He was as transparent as crystal and looked like an ice sculpture. His exquisite face that was formed from frost was now dripping with clear droplets of water, making him look like he had just been hauled out from the water. The man from the Blaze clan looked at the youth from the Ice clan, puzzled. "Why?" The youth from the Ice clan impatiently curled his lip that looked as if it had been carved from ice. "You're too hot." "But, it's cooler near you," the man from the Blaze clan said innocently as he quietly moved his chair. The face of the youth from the Ice clan darkened immediately. Chapter 1246, Birthday Celebration, 2, Burp. This Luo family is so interesting. They've actually seeded the Blaze clan and the Ice clan together. Mi Chiu looked over at the disturbance and waved its tail lazily. When they saw that all the guests were seated, the Luo family ordered servants to serve the delicacies and wine that had been prepared in advance. As he looked at all the guests gathered under the lamplight, Luo Qi's gaze secretly fell on Yi Qingtang. He frowned slightly, and as he looked at everyone enjoying themselves, he walked over to his older brother, Luo Feng, and spoke softly. "Elder brother, why is the Holy Lord of Shadows here?" "Don't know." Luo Feng shook his head slightly, his gaze also secretly moving towards Yi Qingtang. "Today is very important to great-grandfather. The Holy Lord of Shadows has been missing for thousands of years. Now, she has suddenly reappeared and is even in our house. What does that mean? Does she mean to act against us?" Luo Qi asked softly. The appearance of the Holy Lord of Shadows was completely beyond their expectations. Who would have thought that the Holy Lord of Shadows, who had vanished for thousands of years, would now appear at the Luo family Grand Elder's birthday banquet? "Don't worry. It's not yet certain whether this Holy Lord of Shadows is real or an impostor," said Luo Feng suddenly. Luo Qi was shocked. "Elder brother, are you saying that this Holy Lord of Shadows is fake?" "I can't be certain," Luo Feng said. "The Holy Lord of Shadows vanished for thousands of years, and the Temple of Shadows has declined. If the Holy Lord of Shadows did not disappear, then where has she been all these years? Why didn't she appear when the Temple of Shadows declined? Also, many of the undead in this mainland are currently enslaved. Considering the Holy Lord of Shadows' temperament, do you think she would have ignored this if she was still in the Temple of Shadows?" Luo Qi thought that what Luo Feng said made a lot of sense. "Then, does Elder Brother mean that this Holy Lord of Shadows is an impostor from the Temple of Shadows? They are using this as an excuse to intimidate us." "That may not be the case." Luo Feng shook his head. "When I saw her chatting with the great-grandfather just now, I could not tell that anything was wrong. I felt that she was just like the Holy Lord the Grand Elder talked about previously." "In that case," Luo Qi's brow furrowed slightly. "Even if she really is the Holy Lord of Shadows, why does it matter? As I said, the Temple of Shadows and the Clan of the Undead situation has been unfavorable for thousands of years. If this Holy Lord of Shadows still retains her former power, then she would have already acted to cow the mainland. Now, she has emerged after secluding herself for thousands of years. I think, she won't create any trouble," Luo Feng said. Realization suddenly dawned on Luo Qi. Perhaps she was severely injured in the battle with the powerful cultivators from the second domain? "That's possible." Luo Feng nodded. The Holy Lord of Shadows' disappearance had coincided with the conclusion of the battle with the powerful cultivators from the second domain. That makes sense. Perhaps, she was seriously injured and afraid that others would find out, so she deliberately started the rumor that she had disappeared and secretly went into seclusion to recover, said Luo Qi. Luo Feng nodded slightly and looked away. He spoke to Luo Qi. The arrival of the Holy Lord of Shadows is unexpected, but why does it matter? Great-grandfather's plan for today will certainly succeed. The arrival of the Holy Lord of Shadows will even enhance the effect of great-grandfather's scheme. Luo Qi nodded. Elder brother, you are right. Nothing will go wrong for great-grandfather. Luo Feng patted Luo Qi's shoulder in satisfaction as his gaze swept over the hall full of guests. Chapter 1247, Birthday Celebration, 3. Luo Feng spoke coldly. After today, our Luo family will reach its peak. The Temple of Shadows was the supreme power in Central Mainland, but starting from tomorrow, our Luo family will rewrite history. Luo Qi nodded hard. Then, he put a smile on his face and went to entertain the guests. No one noticed the conversation between the two brothers. Yi Qingtang was sitting on a chair, maintaining a holy lord-like smile on her face. No one came over to chat with her, perhaps because of her status as the Holy Lord, and Yi Qingtang relaxed a little. But before she could relax completely, she suddenly felt a piercing gaze fall on her. Before Yi Qingtang could determine the source of that gaze, a figure suddenly appeared in front of her. Holy Lord of Shadows, it's been a long time since we last met. A suave old man was looking at Yi Qingtang through hooded eyes. Although the old man's words seemed courteous, his tone was filled with hatred. He looked at Yi Qingtang as if he would like to flay her alive. More than 20 people followed behind the old man. Some were old, and some were young, but all of them were dressed alike, with a soaring eagle embroidered on their chests. Yi Qingtang took one look and received a jolt. This old man was the Grand Elder of the Yunying sect, and Yi Qingtang had known him in her previous life. The Yunying sect was one of the super sects in Central Mainland and was extremely powerful. This Grand Elder of the Yunying sect was a force to be reckoned with. Yi Qingtang had merely heard rumors of the Grand Elder of the Yunying sect in her previous life but had not met him in person. However, she knew how powerful he was. At any other time, Yi Qingtang would not think much of meeting the Grand Elder of the Yunying sect. But now, she was meeting the Grand Elder of the Yunying sect in her capacity as the Holy Lord of Shadows. One must know that, thousands of years ago, when the Temple of Shadows was at its peak, the Holy Lord of Shadows had killed the Yunying sect Grand Elder's entire clan. Only the young Grand Elder of the Yunying sect had survived. After that, the Grand Elder of the Yunying sect had sworn vengeance on the Holy Lord of Shadows. He had entered the Yunying sect, and with his immense natural talent, his capabilities had advanced rapidly. However, before the Grand Elder of the Yunying sect could return from his studies and seek vengeance on the Holy Lord of Shadows, the latter had vanished. Yi Qingtang had not expected that her luck would be so bad as to run into the Grand Elder of the Yunying sect here. However, although Yi Qingtang's heart was racing, she had no choice but to keep her cool in front of the undead. She maintained her faint smile, calmly swept a look at the Grand Elder of the Yunying sect, and spoke. "Who are you?" Her casual tone seemed to completely ignore the hatred in the eyes of the Grand Elder of the Yunying sect. At that moment, the branch master of the Temple of Shadows was secretly observing Yi Qingtang's reaction. "I'm not surprised that the Holy Lord of Shadows does not recognize me. When you personally slaughtered the 1,000+ members in my Yun clan, I doubt you expected anyone to survive. For thousands of years, I have spent every moment longing for vengeance. And now, you have finally appeared." The Grand Elder of the Yunying sect's eyes were filled with contempt. He was so filled with rage that he smiled instead. Chapter 1248, Every Debt Has Its Debtor, 1. Yi Qingtang's heart turned cold when she saw the Grand Elder of the Yunying sect's bone-chilling determination to kill her. The Grand Elder was so powerful he could probably reduce her to minced meat with just one finger. However, Yi Qingtang forced down the chill in her heart. She glanced at the Grand Elder of the Yunying sect from the corner of her eye and laughed softly. "The Yun family? I'm so sorry. I can't remember such a clan at all. How could the Holy Lord of Shadows, who was once supreme in this mainland, possibly remember every one of the millions of clans she had slaughtered? Sorry, Grand Elder of the Uniying sect. She did not wish to say this either, but dozens of eyes from the Temple of Shadows were staring at her. The Grand Elder of the Uniying sect glared at Yi Qingtang. She had taken thousands of lives in his Yun clan, and now she had no recollection of it at all. Whether or you remember them or not, I will definitely avenge my clansmen today. The Grand Elder of the Uniying sect bellowed with rage. The Uniying sect members behind him immediately advanced a step and were about to draw their swords. The commotion immediately drew the attention of all the guests who were present. At that moment, everyone's gaze converged on them. They looked at the deep hatred of the usually suave Grand Elder of the Uniying sect, then looked at the Holy Lord of Shadows, who was smiling sweetly and unconcernedly. Everyone's emotions were in turmoil. The Uniying sect's power was certainly uncommon, and the Grand Elder's abilities were sufficient to make him one of the top powerful cultivators. However, the object of his vengeance was the Holy Lord of Shadows, who used to be the most powerful cultivator in the entire mainland. Is the Grand Elder of the Uniying sect crazy? Is he really going to indiscriminately fight the Holy Lord of Shadows? His entire clan was slaughtered before his eyes. Anyone else would have collapsed, but all these years, the Grand Elder of the Uniying sect forced himself to survive to avenge his clansmen. I hear that he spent thousands of years training diligently. This time, he might be planning to fight the Holy Lord of Shadows to death. Yi Qingtang almost collapsed inwardly when she saw the Uniying sect Grand Elder's murderous intent. She could clearly sense that the Grand Elder of the Uniying sect was determined to avenge his clansmen. He would even sacrifice his life to do so. However, she was not even the Holy Lord of Shadows. How could she possibly be a match for the Grand Elder of the Uniying sect? Yi Qingtang lifted her eyes slightly. Her expression did not change at all when faced with the murderous intentions of the Grand Elder of the Uniying sect. She raised her head a little, and the smile lurking in the corner of her mouth deepened slightly. Who are you to seek vengeance on me? How hateful she was. Yi Qingtang grieved inwardly, but she maintained her lofty expression as if the Grand Elder of the Uniying sect was of no consequence to her. She flicked her eyes away and said, "Today is Luo Qufeng's birthday banquet. I am not interested in spoiling someone's joyous occasion." Yi Qingtang paused and swept a cold look at the Grand Elder of the Uniying sect. You are not a worthy opponent. Not a worthy opponent. Today, I will make you pay for the lives of my entire clan. The Grand Elder of the Uniying sect was prepared for indiscriminate destruction, and he struck out with a thunderous blow. A huge, crimson dragon instantly blasted out from the Grand Elder of the Uniying sect's palm and roared towards Yi Qingtang. Yi Qingtang already sensed the crimson dragon roaring towards her with an apocalyptic force. Death seemed imminent. Chapter 1249, Every debt has its debtor, too, but at that moment, Yi Qingtang remained motionless. She maintained her composure as she sat on her chair. She even slowly picked up her wine cup, as if completely unaware that death was imminent. However, the second before the crimson dragon touched Yi Qingtang, the Temple of Shadows branch master, who had been biding his time, suddenly struck. A black whirlwind swept out of his wide sleeve and instantly transformed into a huge black dragon that headed straight for the crimson dragon of the Grand Elder of the Uniying sect. The instant the two dragons collided, the aftershock smashed the surrounding utensils into smithereens. How dare you? Who is this lowly human who dares to offend the Holy Lord? The Temple of Shadows branch master said coldly, but he was inwardly murmuring to himself. Before they left for the Luo house, the Holy Son, Ming Wang, had ordered them to secretly observe the Holy Lord's behavior to ensure that she was not an impostor. Along the way, the branch master had not seen anything unusual about the Holy Lord's behavior. When the Grand Elder of the Uniying sect had offended her just now, the branch master was secretly observing Yi Qingtang's reaction. But she acted exactly like the Holy Lord had in the past. The Holy Lord had maintained her composure and talked and laughed sweetly without deigning to pay any attention to the Grand Elder. Yi Qingtang did not react when she saw that the branch master had acted, but she inwardly heaved a huge sigh of relief. Every day that passed was traumatic. Considering the gulf between her powers and those of the Grand Elder of the Yunying sect, she would be unable to avoid that blow even if she wanted to. Even if she had the ability to avoid it, just the act of dodging would arouse the deepest suspicions in the undead. After all, the Holy Lord of Shadows, who used to be the most powerful cultivator, would certainly not act like that. In that situation, Yi Qingtang would have died whether she moved or not. She might as well maintain her pose as Holy Lord. As expected, the undead of the Temple of Shadows could not possibly tolerate anyone offending their Holy Lord. Hadn't they acted? Although she had passed the test, Yi Qingtang broke out in a cold sweat. The enemies that this Holy Lord of Shadows had made were probably each more formidable and tougher than the next. Every day was like treading on thin ice. When would it end? However, although she inwardly felt helpless, Yi Qingtang continued to maintain an attitude of supreme aloofness. She glanced at the Grand Elder of the Yunying sect from the corner of her eye. I will not repeat myself. Since today is Luo Qufeng's birthday banquet, I will let the matter go. But if you don't appreciate my offer, then don't blame me for not giving you a chance. Grand Elder, pack up your remarkable abilities and go. Rubbish. If I don't kill you today, I will let my entire Yun clan down. Come on and be killed. The Grand Elder failed to notice Yi Qingtang's inner cry. He only felt that the Holy Lord of Shadows was completely detestable, and he could not wait to tear her to shreds. Why won't he listen? Yi Qingtang sighed inwardly but continued to smile calmly. She raised her hand and emptied her cup. She spoke casually. If you want me to fight, you will have to prove to be worthy of it. Yi Qingtang spoke without looking at anyone else, but her words were instructions to the undead from the Temple of Shadows. The dozens of undead from the Temple of Shadows suddenly rose, and a strong demonic aura flowed forth. The Yunying sect naturally would not give up. The Grand Elder of the Yunying sect gave a low shout and aimed the first blow at Yi Qingtang. Chapter 1250, Every Debt Has Its Debtor. 3. Yi Qingtang remained firmly seated and did not move an inch. The branch master of the Temple of Shadows took on the attack from the Grand Elder of the Yunying sect. Who is this lowly human? You are not worthy to fight the Holy Lord of Shadows. The branch master laughed softly and eerily. He was soon embroiled in a fight with the Grand Elder of the Yunying sect. The others from the Yunying sect also began to fight the undead from the Temple of Shadows. The entire birthday banquet dissolved into shouts and explosions, creating many strong aftershocks that smashed everything in the vicinity. Yi Qingtang saw that the two sides were fighting intensely. She continued to smile slightly as she casually poured a cup of wine for herself and sipped it as if nothing had happened. Many of the guests at the birthday banquet were shocked by the intensity of the battle. They had not thought that a birthday banquet would lead to a fight between the Yunying sect and the Temple of Shadows. The Grand Elder of the Yunying sect was truly formidable, but the branch master of the Yunying sect would not give an inch. The two of them fought furiously, and the aftershocks from their battle allowed the others to sense just how horrifying their powers were. The Temple of Shadows is indeed formidable. Although it has been on the decline for thousands of years, its original strength still remains. Everyone present could not help but think this as they saw the bewildering scene before them. The Holy Lord of Shadows has not acted yet, and the Yunying sect is merely on par with the Temple of Shadows. If the Holy Lord of Shadows acts, won't it mean, everyone subconsciously looked at Yi Qingtang. Act? No way. Yi Qingtang forced herself to pretend to be calm and tried her best to maintain the dignity of the Holy Lord. She was exhausted from just remaining in the same spot and withstanding the aftershocks of the battle between the powerful cultivators from both sides. If she were not afraid of exposing herself, she would have slunk away already. Luo Qi looked at the intense battle, then turned to look at Luo Zufeng and Luo Feng with a slightly worried expression. However, Luo Feng only secretly shook his head at him with a mocking look in his eyes. The two sides were embroiled in the fight. No one wanted to be on the losing end. The Grand Elder of the Yunying sect had diligently trained for thousands of years, but the Temple of Shadows had a deep foundation, and the branch master was extremely powerful. The two sides were momentarily at a stalemate. The elders from the Yunying sect could hold their own against their opponents, but they were inwardly worried. The Holy Lord of Shadows had not yet entered the fight, yet they still could not gain the upper hand and were unable to even touch the Holy Lord of Shadows. Once the Holy Lord of Shadows entered the fight, they would certainly lose. Grand Elder, we cannot continue like this. Since the Holy Lord of Shadows has appeared, we can always seek vengeance another day. One of the Yunying sect elders took the opportunity to advise the Grand Elder. They had only come to offer their good wishes and were few and unprepared. They could not continue fighting for long. Furthermore, the Luo house was not far from the Temple of Shadows. If the Holy Lord of Shadows gave the command, reinforcements from the undead of the Temple of Shadows would certainly reach before their own reinforcements. The Grand Elder of the Yunying sect gritted his teeth as he looked at Yi Qingtang sitting peacefully nearby. His eyes were bloodshot with hatred. But having lived thousands of years, he was not one to act rashly, and he withdrew. Holy Lord of Shadows, I will certainly avenge the Yun clan. With that, the Grand Elder of the Yunying sect led everyone and swiftly left the Luo house. Yi Qingtang heaved a huge sigh of relief when she saw the retreating figure of the Grand Elder of the Yunying sect. A debt belongs to its debtor. Grand Elder, you have the wrong person. Chapter 1251, Misspoken Words. 1. The fight disturbed the peace of the celebration. Members of the Yunying sect left nothing but a mess behind. Luo Feng took a glimpse at Luo Zufeng and said softly, "Great-grandfather, those people of the Yunying sect, it's all right." Luo Zufeng shook his head. The moment Luo Zufeng finished his words, a deep burst of laughter was heard. Two figures appeared in the midair and landed in the courtyard of the Luo family. "Brother Luo, sorry that I'm slightly late today. Hope you can understand." A tall and strong elder with a beard folded his hands together and smiled at Luo Zufeng. The other skinny and shorter elder folded his hands and greeted Luo Zufeng as well. The guests were shocked as they saw the sudden appearance of the two elders. They both were one of the 12 saints of the central mainland. The tall one was called Hongzhong. He was extremely strong and could destroy a mountain or sea with one fist. The shorter one was called Suomu. He was very powerful despite being small. Both of them fought during the fight at the second domain a few thousand years ago. Their help was significant, and they were friends with Luo Zufeng. The name of the 12 saints was very influential. Everyone was a renowned chief. They could make the central mainland tremble with a slight stomp. Luo Zufeng looked at Suomu and Hongzhong and smiled. "It's all right, as long as you're here." Hongzhong laughed and scanned through the mess. "Brother Luo, today is your birthday. What's wrong with the celebration?" Before Hongzhong finished his words, his sight landed on Yi Qingtang, who was sitting in the mess. Both Hongzhong and Suomu were part of the fight a few thousand years ago and had seen the Holy Lord of Shadows. Holy Lord of Shadows? Hongzhong was astonished as he saw Yi Qingtang. "I did not imagine that Brother Luo was able to invite Holy Lord Senior over as well." Hongzhong folded his hands together and greeted Yi Qingtang. "Senior, I could still remember how you fought a few thousand years ago. It's my pleasure to be able to meet you here today." Suomu also went forward and greeted her. "Senior, We were here to celebrate Brother Luo's birthday and did not expect to meet you here. Yi Qingtang stared at Hong Zhong and Suamu. She was surprised internally. The position that the 12 saints held in the central mainland was supreme. Their power and ability were terrifying for all. Yi Qingtang had only heard of their names in her previous life and met a few. She respected them greatly. However, Hong Zhong and Suamu, the 12 saints that she respected, greeted her in front of everyone and addressed her as senior. Yi Qingtang had mixed feelings but did not reveal any of them on her face. She just smiled and nodded slightly. Suamu and Hong Zhong did not feel anything that was inappropriate. The memories of meeting senior in the past are still fresh in my mind. I need to thank Brother Luo for inviting senior here and providing us with another opportunity to meet you. They added. Yi Qingtang could not say anything and could only remain calm. Hong Zhong looked towards Luo Zufeng and said, Brother Luo, if you told us earlier that the Holy Lord of Shadows is going to be here, Suamu and I would definitely be punctual. Chapter 1252, Misspoken Words. 2. Luo Zufeng smiled and was about to speak, but a rather cynical voice suddenly rang. It is indeed surprising that the Luo family can invite the Holy Lord of Shadows. However, the Temple of Shadows and the Luo residence are not far away from each other, and the Luo family has always been extremely respectful towards the Temple of Shadows. It seems that the Luo family probably yielded and pledged allegiance to the Temple of Shadows. Otherwise, why would the Holy Lord of Shadows grace us with her presence? A middle-aged man chuckled and cast a look at Luo Zufeng. There was no change in Luo Zufeng's expression while Luo Feng frowned slightly. That person who spoke was the manor chief of Dongyu Manor. Dongyu Manor initially had good relations with the Luo family, but they completely fell out due to certain matters 1,000 years ago, and there have been many disputes between them whether it be in public or in secret. It was already shocking that people from the Dongyu Manor came today. As expected, the Dongyu Manor chief had a scornful tone. Dongyu Manor chief, food can be eaten without regard, but that's not so for words. When has the Luo family yielded to the Temple of Shadows? The evidently irascible Luo Qi asked unhappily. So be it if you all yielded. This is your Luo family's matter. What is there to not admit? What is the Holy Lord of Shadows' identity? How can anyone else be able to invite her? If your Luo family did not yield to the Temple of Shadows, why would the Holy Lord personally attend this event? Dongyu Manor chief asked with a smile. Everyone was extremely surprised that the Holy Lord of Shadows came today and was filled with curiosity. Dongyu Manor chief, you must speak with evidence, Luo Qi said coldly. Dongyu Manor chief looked at Yi Qingtang and cupped his fists. Evidence? The Holy Lord of Shadows is right here. Is this still not considered evidence? Luo Qi had a grim expression and almost started a fight with Dongyu Manor chief. Fortunately, Luo Feng held him back and secretly shook his head while giving him a look to calm down. Yi Qingtang did not utter a single word throughout. Looking at the chaotic scene before her, she sighed in her heart. No ordinary person could be the Holy Lord of Shadows. The Holy Lord of Shadows is very reputable, and there would be many benefits if the Luo family yielded to the Temple of Shadows. Isn't there a saying that one will benefit by following closely behind heavy-laden wagons? Dongyu Manor chief chuckled. Luo Qi glared at Dongyu Manor chief, but before he said anything, Luo Zufeng, who had been silent all this while, suddenly spoke. Dongyu Manor chief, today is my birthday celebration. Your provocation is a little too overboard. Dongyu Manor chief scoffed. Just as he was about to speak, Luo Zufeng abruptly raised his hand, and a scarlet gleam shot out from his palm and into Dongyu Manor chief's glabella. Luo Zufeng's attack caught everyone off guard. People knew that Dongyu Manor and the Luo family were not on good terms, but no one thought that Luo Zufeng would suddenly attack someone on his own birthday banquet. Everyone did not know how to react for a moment. That red gleam pierced Dongyu Manor Chief's glabella at once. In just a moment, the scarlet point on Dongyu Manor Chief's glabella spread throughout his entire brain rapidly, and numerous red blood vessels covered his entire body. The entire process happened so quickly that no one could react in time. Countless red gleams shot out of Dongyu Manor Chief's body without warning and flew right into Luo Qufeng's palm. The red gleam disappeared a moment later. Dongyu Manor Chief's complexion became extremely pale in just a moment, and he fell to the floor carelessly while breaking out in a cold sweat profusely. Chapter 1253, Misspoken Words. 3, Brother Luo, today is your birthday. There's no need to fuss over small matters with these people and spoil your mood. Hong Zhong did not expect Luo Qufeng to strike suddenly, as it was very unlike his usual behavior. Nonetheless, Luo Qufeng merely lifted his chin up and looked at Dongyu Manor Chief, who fell to the ground. My powers. Dongyu Manor Chief was scarily pale as though he was picked up from underwater. He suddenly looked up at Luo Qufeng with hatred. Luo Qufeng, you old jerk. You absorbed all of my powers. At that moment, Dongyu Manor Chief felt that his energy had been completely sucked away. All his martial realm that he cultivated for thousands of years was actually absorbed away by Luo Qufeng in that one moment. Dongyu Manor Chief's words stunned everyone. Luo Qufeng absorbed all of his powers. What did that mean? Other people from Dongyu Manor hurried forward and held their manor chief up nervously. They, as well, did not think that Luo Qufeng would attack suddenly. Everything happened too abruptly. As Luo Qufeng looked at the pale Dongyu Manor Chief, the wide smile on his face was laced with menace. Dongyu Manor Chief, I tolerated you for too long. It's you, yourself, who didn't know what's good for you. However, you should thank me instead. From now on, your powers will be mine to use, and this will be an honor for you. Everyone was dumbfounded by Luo Qufeng's words. Luo Qufeng really absorbed all of Dongyu Manor Chief's powers away. Senior Luo, Dongyu Manor Chief was indeed wrong, but there should be a line to everything. Isn't what you did too overboard? Right. If Dongyu Manor Chief was disrespectful, the Luo family can simply chase them out. Why must you do this? Many of the guests had some ties with the Luo family in Dongyu Manor, and the sudden incident truly caught them off guard. They just felt that Luo Qufeng's attack out of anger was too out of place. However, Luo Qufeng did not have any intention to stop as he looked across everyone with a smile. I'm afraid you are all mistaken. Luo Qufeng explained. I am very thankful that you all can come today, but from today on, all of you will become a part of me. Your powers will also soon be for me to use, and you all will accompany me to ascend to the peak of this world through another form, Luo Qufeng said smilingly as insanity filled his eyes. Luo Qufeng, what do you mean by that? Everyone was alarmed when they heard something off in Luo Qufeng's tone. Luo Qufeng chuckled. In the next second, a gleam enshrouded over the Luo residence, and all the exits were sealed by spells. Everyone's expression changed. Today is the most important day of your lives. Offering your powers to me will be your honor. Luo Qufeng looked up slightly as his eyes passed through everyone at the scene. It was only at this instant that the guests realized that the birthday banquet today was simply a trap by the Luo family. Luo Qufeng was actually so berserk to this state, he used the pretense of his birthday banquet to deceive countless powerful figures into coming only to absorb everyone's powers for his own use on this night. Luo Qufeng, you are a shameless, old bastard. Why did I not see through your sinister plans earlier? Chapter 1254, Ambush. 1, Luo Qufeng, do you want to become enemies with everyone here? I never expected you to be so sanctimonious. The guests who felt extremely deceived berated furiously. Yet, Luo Qufeng's expression did not change. He merely snickered as he looked at the numerous powerful figures before him who were his offerings today. There's no need to be angry. If I ever reach the peak, you all naturally have the credit for it. You all will also reach that highest realm that no one has ever reached before through another form. You all should not be angry and should thank me instead, Luo Tufeng said with a laugh. Pfft. Shameless old bastard. I will fight it out with your Luo family today. What the fuck? The Luo family is so malicious. Let's fight it out with them. The guests were completely enraged. They came out of goodwill to celebrate his birthday, but the Luo family was so evil to want to harm all of them. All the exits were completely sealed by the Luo family currently, and, in anger, everyone dashed toward Luo Tufeng and the other members of the Luo family. The Luo family was already prepared for this from the start. Many powerful figures from the Luo family who were already laying in wait rushed out and fought the guests instantly. The initially auspicious and peaceful birthday celebration was, however, a full-blown battlefield now. Many powerful figures took out their Dharma treasures as they engaged in a life-and-death struggle against the Luo family. Although Hong Zhong and Suamu knew Luo Tufeng a long time ago and had many years of friendship, they clearly sensed Luo Tufeng's viciousness at this moment and feared that no one present today would be spared from his malice. I really never thought that Luo Tufeng would become like this. Hong Zhong frowned deeply. Suamu said coldly, in the central mainland, the powerful ones have always commanded honor and respect. It's just that Luo Tufeng's method is too shameless. If we let him have his way today, we don't know what will come out of it. Luo Tufeng must have cultivated a secret evil cultivation technique to be able to absorb other people's powers and convert them for his own use. Brother Soa, let's go after him now. All right. Then, the two men bolted toward Luo Tufeng and attacked directly. These 2 out of the 12 saints were extremely skilled, and 2 destructive forces rushed straight toward Luo Tufeng. Luo Tufeng's lips curled into a snicker as he watched the 2 men coming for him. In just a moment, Luo Tufeng shifted his body slightly, and a scarlet gleam erupted from his body and shot into the sky. The wind from his palm formed a giant dragon, which lunged at the 2 men. Suamu, Hong Zhong, and Luo Tufeng were locked in a messy battle. In the chaos, all clans fully displayed their capabilities. The giant clan trampled around thunderously while their huge fists swung toward the light barrier over the Luo residence in an attempt to break it. Yet, despite the unparalleled strength of the giant clan, that light barrier did not budge at all even with their combined effort. Lan Yu and his nephew were fighting the Luo family members. Spreading the wings on his back, numerous light rays emerged on his wings and shot down successively. The entire battlefield was messy and in shambles. Yi Qingtang was seated in her original seat. She had not spoken, and thus the undead clan behind her naturally did not move. Amidst the chaos, they seemed exceptionally unusual. What is going on? Yi Qingtang's head started hurting as she watched the wild battle before her. Why did a normal birthday celebration become such a huge scheme? She just sent the Yunying sect Grand Elder away, but another even bigger incident followed right after. Chapter 1255, Ambush, 2. At this instant, there was no emotion on Yi Qingtang's face though she had already groaned numerous times on the inside. She had felt that there was something strange when Ming Wang gave her the invitation. After all, given the Luo family's influence, it was still insufficient for the Holy Lord of Shadows to personally attend a birthday celebration. She originally thought that Ming Wang intended to use this trip to let the undead clan following her observe her actions. But looking at the situation now, that was not the case at all. This little rascal must have bluffed her here because he knew the Luo family's scheme from the start. If she was truly the Holy Lord of Shadows, she would naturally be able to leave the Luo residence safely given her skills. If she was fake, she would probably die without a doubt. At this moment, Yi Qingtang gave her hats off to Ming Wang's method to tell the authenticity of her identity. She had long known that the Temple of Shadows was not so easy to trick. Yi Qingtang did not reveal any emotions, but she secretly observed the situation on the battlefield. Suo Mu and Hong Zhong of the 12 Saints were present, and their skills were comparable to that of Luo Qufeng's. Logically speaking, they should be able to stop the Luo family's schemes. However, Yi Qingtang did not think that things were so simple. Luo Qufeng planned this from the start but still invited Suo Mu and Hong Zhong. Unless he was an idiot, he definitely would not involve people he could not defeat into his scheme. Before this, Luo Qufeng's aura was evidently different from rumors when he attacked, while his evil cultivation technique to absorb other people's powers was probably hidden for a long time. Most likely, he had greatly concealed his skills in the past 1,000 years. Just as Yi Qingtang was worrying, there was a new situation on the battlefield. Suo Mu and Hong Zhong joined forces against Luo Qufeng and thought that they would definitely be victorious. Yet, unexpectedly, Luo Qufeng's skills soared suddenly and completely overthrew the both of them. The two men increasingly felt a strain, and Luo Qufeng gained the upper hand after 100 moves. He waved his hand suddenly, and a scarlet glow resembling a red sun smashed into the two men. Boom, boom. Boom, boom. With two loud rumbles, Suo Mu and Hong Zhong crashed onto the ground by the overpowering force and spat out large mouthfuls of blood. They were clearly severely wounded by Luo Qufeng. When the Luo family members saw that Luo Qufeng triumphed over the two powerful figures, their arrogance soared. Luo Qufeng, you indeed hid your true skills. Hong Zhong clutched onto his excruciatingly painful chest while frowning at the uninjured Luo Qufeng. Flicking his sleeves, Luo Qufeng kept both hands behind him and towered over the two men whom he had known for years. Hong Zhong, Suo Mu, we have thousands of years of friendship, and I will not forget it. Thus, how can today's big event miss the two of you? Luo Qufeng laughed sinisterly right after. Rest assured. I will not let you two feel too much pain. You all cultivated for thousands of years, but your skills have already come to a standstill, and it's hard to have any greater progress. Why not give me your powers and let me use it instead? I will bring you all along with me to the true peak of powerful figures. Luo Qufeng, you are truly shameless. To think that I still treated you as a friend. I never thought that you were this sickening. Suo Mu retorted coldly. A cold look flashed across Luo Qufeng's eyes, and he kicked Suo Mu on the chest violently. Don't disregard my kindness. It is your honor to be a part of me. Since you all are so stupid and stubborn, there's no need for me to be polite with you all then. Chapter 1256, Ambush, 3, Luo Qufeng's eyes sharpened. He raised his hand immediately, and a beam of red light emerged from his palm. His posture was exactly the same as when he absorbed the powers of Manor Chief Dongyu. Seeing that Suo Mu was about to fall for the attack, Luo Qufeng suddenly spotted a special figure in the scuffle from the corner of his eyes. He suddenly raised his hand and narrowed his eyes as he looked at Yi Qingtang, who was seated calmly in the middle of the brawl. In such a great fight, Yi Qingtang actually did not move an inch, and it even seemed as though the smile on her face never disappeared. The Holy Lord of the Temple of Shadows was extremely renowned in the central mainland, and her skills demanded even more respect. A thought struck Luo Qufeng. If he could absorb the powers of the Holy Lord of Shadows and use it for himself, his powers would definitely increase by leaps and bounds. Luo Qufeng slapped Suo Mu's face immediately. Brother Suo, don't worry. I will absorb your powers later. Then, Luo Qufeng leaped straight towards Yi Qingtang. Yi Qingtang, who was initially sitting at a side, observed the situation. The moment she saw Suo Mu and Hong Zhong's defeat, her heart reached rock bottom. Amongst everyone present today, it could be said that Suo Mu and Hong Zhong were the two most powerful people. Yet, these two people were still not Luo Qufeng's opponent even after joining forces. As she had thought, Luo Qufeng had indeed concealed his abilities. Just as Yi Qingtang mulled over this, she suddenly noticed that Luo Qufeng, who was about to attack Suamu, took a look at her. In the next second, he threw Suamu aside and came straight for her. Yi Qingtang's heart turned cold. Why can't you find someone else? Why are you coming for me? All Yi Qingtang wanted to do now was to flee. She could not even defeat Cloud Eagle Sect's Grand Elder earlier on, much less Luo Qufeng, who fought against 2 of the 12 saints by himself. However, the undead clan behind her did not move. If she ran, the undead clan would see through her identity within 2 steps and kill her instantly. Yi Qingtang was about to cry as she looked at Luo Qufeng, who was already right before her eyes. What sin did she commit? Whether she fled or not, the outcome was still death. Holy Lord is indeed the Holy Lord. You are still so composed even in the face of such a situation. You have my admiration. Luo Qufeng looked at Yi Qingtang and said with a smile. Did she dare to move? She could not defeat him nor escape. Yi Qingtang was extremely indignant deep down, but she still maintained the dignity and composure of a holy lord as she smiled at the ill-intentioned Luo Qufeng. At this instant, everyone sensed Luo Qufeng's movement and, in the midst of the fight, their eyes silently focused on Yi Qingtang. Seeing that 2 of the 12 saints were defeated, everyone was already aware that Luo Qufeng's skills were exceedingly high and not what they could go against. Furthermore, Luo Qufeng continuously absorbed the powers of the people present, which meant that his skills would only become more and more powerful and that they would undoubtedly be defeated. In despair, all hope was on Yi Qingtang, who had not made a move yet. I've long heard about the prowess of the Holy Lord of Shadows. Although I fought alongside you against the powerful figures of the second domain, I did not have the opportunity to witness your skills. Can you do me the honor to exchange a few moves with me today? Luo Qufeng's words were polite, but his ambitious eyes revealed his desire for the Holy Lord of Shadows' powers. Yi Qingtang's heart raced furiously, but she did not dare to show any abnormality on her face and could only smile without saying anything. No. Even if she died, she would not show any unusual behavior. If she did, she would be dead. Chapter 1257, The Misery Inside, 1, Insolent. What are you? How dare you be so brazen to our Holy Lord? The Temple of Shadows Hall Master immediately stepped forward and berated Luo Qufeng coldly. It was the first time that Yi Qingtang found this ghostly-looking Hall Master adorable. Luo Qufeng cast the Temple of Shadows Hall Master a cold look and snickered. I am not talking to you. Afterward, Luo Qufeng's eyes landed on Yi Qingtang, and he smiled. Are you unwilling to give me this honor, Holy Lord? Since you're unwilling to make a move, don't blame me for being impolite then. Luo Qufeng took a step forward immediately as a red gleam floated around his body. How audacious! The Temple of Shadows Hall Master's eyes sharpened, and his ash skeleton hand violently punched at Luo Qufeng. Unfazed, Luo Qufeng struck his palm out, which met with the Hall Master's. An explosive sound rang the moment both palms crashed into each other. Yi Qingtang almost waved a banner and cheered for the Temple of Shadows Hall Master. However, in the next second, the Temple of Shadows Hall Master was staggered backward, and his expression changed. Yi Qingtang was silent. Her heart shattered once again. Although the Temple of Shadows Hall Master was powerful, Luo Qufeng was even more formidable. They could not win against him. How dare you clamor before me? I am not interested in wasting my time with you. Luo Qufeng shot a belittling look at the Hall Master and scoffed. Holy Lord, this person is disrespectful, and I am ashamed that I am not powerful enough. Please do make a move. Knowing that he was not Luo Qufeng's opponent, the Hall Master suddenly turned to look at Yi Qingtang and kneeled down on one knee. Yi Qingtang's heart was in crumbles, but she still maintained a composed expression. Amongst the undead clan which she brought, the Hall Master was the most powerful one, but he still could not defeat Luo Zufeng. Luo Zufeng did not sense Yi Qingtang's thoughts at all. A sneer hung on his lips as he looked at Yi Qingtang's indifferent behavior as though she had never paid any attention to him. "Holy Lord, your dog is nothing much. You!" the Hall Master shouted furiously. At this instant, the attention of all the guests was focused on Yi Qingtang. In the ambush that the Luo family laid today, Suamu and Hong Zhong were already defeated, and the only person who could control Luo Zufeng now was only the Holy Lord of Shadows. As everyone looked at Yi Qingtang's collected behavior, hope seemed to arise in their hearts. The Holy Lord of Shadows was extremely powerful, and perhaps she could conquer Luo Zufeng. Everyone's eyes were burning with excitement. Luo Zufeng was just right in the corner. If Yi Qingtang was not wearing layers right now, the cold sweat on her back would already have seeped through. Fleeing meant death, and so did fighting as well. The difference was only in the speed of death. Seeing that it was hard to get out of the situation, Yi Qingtang faked a casual chuckle immediately and finally stood up from that chair. She did not utter a word and merely smiled while standing at where she was, but her detached aura was extraordinary. The guests were brimming with hope when they saw that Yi Qingtang finally moved. Is the Holy Lord of Shadows finally going to make a move? People asked expectantly. The extraordinary skills that the Holy Lord of Shadows displayed in the war against the second domain was still fresh in one's mind. Even if she disappeared for thousands of years, no one dared to doubt her skills. Currently, Yi Qingtang was the center of attention and the hope of everyone present. Chapter 1258, The Misery Inside, 2, however, kill Luo Zufeng. Haha, that was thinking too much. If possible, Yi Qingtang would definitely be the one who fled the fastest. Unfortunately, she had no choice. However indignant she was deep down, she still had to pretend to be elegant and calm on the outside. Yi Qingtang was truly in misery. "Are you willing to enlighten me now, Holy Lord?" A look of deviousness darted across Luo Zufeng's eyes. He could no longer wait to absorb the strong powers of the Holy Lord of Shadows for his own use. Yi Qingtang looked at the ambitious Luo Zufeng indifferently and said casually, "There's no need for any flashy moves. Show me your most powerful move. I'll just play with you." Yi Qingtang's calm tone and words astonished many. The Holy Lord of Shadows actually told Luo Zufeng to directly use his most powerful move. What kind of confidence was this? The guests were so exhilarated that they wanted to cheer her on. Even more so, Luo Zufeng clearly felt the belittlement from the Holy Lord of Shadows. "Since Holy Lord has already said so, I will not dampen your spirits." A cold glint flashed across Luo Zufeng's eyes, and the red gleam around him intensified by more than 10 times. The scarlet gleam exuded a suffocating aura such that even the surrounding air seemed to be distorted by his powers. Yi Qingtang secretly held her breath and concentrated. Her heart reached her throat when she saw that Luo Zufeng's powers skyrocketed suddenly. Her hand that was hidden in her sleeves moved slightly, and no one discovered her subtle actions with the concealment of her wide sleeves. A wild wind stirred up. The scarlet gleam around Luo Zufeng swayed like a raging blaze. "In the war with the second domain thousands of years ago, I discovered a cultivation technique which could increase one's cultivation base greatly and even absorb the powers of others for their own use. Today, you shall try this cultivation technique that I cultivated for thousands of years." Luo Zufeng's face became twisted gradually, and his words stunned the guests. No wonder Luo Zufeng's skills skyrocketed. It was because he obtained fragments of the second domain's cultivation technique thousands of years ago. The might of the powerful figures in the second domain was truly astonishing. In the next second, Luo Zufeng suddenly shouted coldly, and the red light around him instantly turned into an endless torrent that shot towards Yi Qingtang. Every place that the red light passed by saw the ground shatter and slates crumble. Deafening roars pierced eardrums. Under such a powerful might, everyone turned white. No one expected Luo Qufeng's killing move would be as frightening as such mass destruction. However, Yi Qingtang did not move an inch and remained at the same spot. The smile on her exquisite face remained, and there was no sign of panic. The moment the torrent reached her, she suddenly raised her hand and waved slightly. Her wide sleeves moved like the flutter of a butterfly and swept at that devouring energy instantly. Greed filled Luo Qufeng's eyes as though he could absorb the Holy Lord of Shadow's formidable powers immediately. However, in his eagerness, the flap of Yi Qingtang's sleeves actually turned that destructive torrent into a stream of water before everyone's eyes. Right before it could touch Yi Qingtang's sleeves, ripples of water could be heard, and glistening water spread across the ground. Everyone was muddled for a moment. Chapter 1259, The Misery Inside, 3, What? What is going on? Why did Luo Qufeng's killing move become a pool of water? Had they not witnessed it for themselves, no one would believe what just happened. Everyone was aware of how frightening that move from Luo Qufeng was. Even powerful figures like Suo Mu and Hong Zhong would be shot dead instantly if they were hit. However, Yi Qingtang actually resolved this move so easily by just waving her sleeves gently. Everyone was astounded. While they were already very reverent towards the powers of the Holy Lord of Shadows, they were in full admiration of her skills after witnessing this unbelievable sight right now. What kind of skill is this, Holy Lord of Shadows? Why have I not heard of any skill that can produce such an effect? Holy Lord of Shadows is indeed amazing. I wish to see what Luo Qufeng can still do now. The guests almost cheered for Yi Qingtang. Even the Temple of Shadows Hall Master was stunned by Yi Qingtang's godlike move. Everyone was extremely delighted and respectful. While Yi Qingtang who received the blow was drenched in a cold sweat. What a freaking skill! She had already secretly concealed the Mirror of Illusions in her sleeves earlier on. The Mirror of Illusions could resolve any attacks, and she had made this preparation when she provoked Luo Qufeng to execute his killing move. No one smelled a rat since that Mirror of Illusions was hidden in her sleeves. Everyone only felt that the Holy Lord's move was unexplainable and that her skills were unfathomable. Yi Qingtang knew that she was not Luo Qufeng's opponent, thus, she wanted to take a gamble using the Mirror of Illusions. Suppressing her emotion, she looked at Luo Qufeng indifferently, and the smile on her face seemed to symbolize her disinterest. Little did they know that, she was really exhausted of abilities and only hoped that Luo Qufeng would be deceived by her move and not dare to act so brazenly. Shock filled Luo Qufeng's face, but he returned to his normal expression moments later. He was shocked by Yi Qingtang's move, but that did not eliminate his greed to absorb the powers of the Holy Lord of Shadows. Holy Lord is indeed amazing. I have truly broadened my horizons. However, I still wish to try again. If not for the fact that she could not defeat Luo Qufeng, Yi Qingtang really wished to smash Luo Qufeng's head on the ground. Had this fellow lost his mind from cultivating evil techniques? He still dared to come again after her pretentious act just now. Did he really think he was second to the heavens? Holy Lord, don't be courteous to this person. Kill him. The oblivious guests cheered for Yi Qingtang to quickly deal with Luo Qufeng. Yi Qingtang was filled with misery on the inside. The use of the Mirror of Illusions was limited. It could no longer be used again after using it just now, and Yi Qingtang would not have the ability to receive Luo Qufeng's next move. However, without giving Yi Qingtang any time to react, Luo Qufeng suddenly flashed across and bolted straight towards her. His fist, which contained all his strength, hurled at Yi Qingtang's chest. All Yi Qingtang felt was a chill around her, and she instinctively raised her hand to meet with Luo Qufeng's palm. The instant the two palms hit each other, Yi Qingtang felt an enormous force enter her palm and rush into her body rapidly. There was a huge gap between her skills and Luo Qufeng's, and Luo Qufeng's full force strike was simply not what she could bear. Chapter 1260, What was going on? 1. This had already exceeded the limit that she could bear. Death seemed to be befalling in the next second. Yet, just as Yi Qingtang was completely disheartened, the enormous force injected into her palm seemed to be devoured by some energy. In the next second, a black air of death shot out of Yi Qingtang's wrist and into Luo Qufeng's palm directly. Boom! Luo Qufeng was hurled out suddenly. Black streaks of an air of death interlaced with his red gleam. Luo Qufeng fell on the ground suddenly and spat a mouthful of blood. Yi Qingtang was completely unaware of what happened. She initially thought that she would die without a doubt. Unexpectedly, the person who flung out was actually Luo Qufeng. What was going on? Luo Qufeng was ghastly pale as he collapsed on the ground. Streaks of black blood rapidly crept around him. When he and Yi Qingtang exchanged blows just now, he felt a rush of an air of death surging into his body suddenly, and he was hurled away in an instant. At this moment his body temperature was dropping continuously, and a piercing cold was being injected into his whole body. Luo Qufeng also has this day. The Holy Lord of Shadow's skills are so frightening, yet Luo Qufeng dared to offend her. How ridiculous. I'm afraid he really is dead this time. Everyone grew excited after seeing Luo Qufeng being severely injured by Yi Qingtang's blow. Yi Qingtang waved a hand to resolve the enormous force and dealt a serious injury to Luo Qufeng with a blow. All of this made everyone worship her skills greatly. However, Yi Qingtang did not understand what was going on herself and felt that it was a little unreal as she watched Luo Qufeng crawl up from the ground. How did she hurl Luo Qufeng away with one move? Blood seeped out of Luo Qufeng's mouth continuously. His eyes were filled with malice, and the coldness around his body brought him much pain. Holy Lord of Shadows, is indeed formidable. Luo Qufeng puked a mouthful of blood. Although Yi Qingtang did not know what was happening, the outcome was positive. She had an indifferent expression, and no one could tell her emotions. She had a manner like that of a supreme powerful figure, and no one dared to offend her at all. However, this was only a delusion, Yi Qingtang mumbled in her heart secretly. He is seriously injured already. Hurry up and stop. Why was he still staring at her and not letting her go? It had been 2 moves already. Were they not enough? Everyone wanted Yi Qingtang to kill Luo Qufeng, but, at this instant, Yi Qingtang only hoped that Luo Qufeng would back down a little and hurry and let her off. Luo Feng and the other Luo family members were shocked to see that Luo Qufeng was heavily injured. Luo Qufeng's skills were extremely powerful to them, and they were very confident of his skills, thus, they were never worried even when they saw the Holy Lord of Shadows. But now, brother. Great-grandfather, Luo Qi had an uneasy look. Yet, Luo Feng frowned slightly and said coldly, "Don't panic. Great-grandfather has not displayed his skills completely. Don't forget what cultivation technique great-grandfather cultivates. There are so many powerful figures here, and great-grandfather's powers will only continue to increase." Just as Luo Feng spoke, Luo Qufeng's eyes turned cold suddenly. Out of a sudden, he took a step forward and leaped up. He spread his arms out like an eagle would spread its wings as he flew right into the crowd and grabbed 2 powerful figures who were fighting with the Luo family members. Chapter 1261, What was going on? 2. In just a moment, a red gleam enveloped the 2 powerful figures, and they were ghastly pale after their cultivation bases were completely absorbed by Luo Qufeng. This is bad. Luo Qufeng must feel that he cannot defeat the Holy Lord of Shadows and wants to absorb other people's power to strengthen himself. Everyone's expression changed. Luo Tufeng was like a hurricane that whirled into the crowd. In no time, he had absorbed the powers of dozens of powerful figures, and his originally pale face slowly returned to its original complexion. Luo Tufeng. You are going too far. Don't let him absorb our powers. Quickly spread out. Leave quickly. Don't give him the chance to absorb even more power. After finding out Luo Tufeng's intentions, everyone hurriedly shouted and dispersed, not daring to continue the fight with the Luo family. Almost instinctively, everyone bolted towards Yi Qingtang's location. In their hearts, they would be safe as long as they hid behind the Holy Lord of Shadows. After all, the Holy Lord of Shadows was that formidable. Even those from the giant clan were hidden behind Yi Qingtang right now. When Yi Qingtang witnessed that the people who were initially fighting the Luo family members with their lives suddenly ran behind her, she almost kicked them to death. All of them are more skilled than her, but they freaking ran to her for protection. While they dispersed quickly, there were still quite a few who were caught by Luo Tufeng and had their cultivation base sucked away. Luo Tufeng had absorbed the cultivation base of hundreds of powerful figures, thus, his injuries were mostly recovered, and his skills improved further. Holy Lord, Luo Tufeng absorbed the powers of others and increased his powers. Please make a move to stop him or else his skills will just continue to increase. Seeing that Yi Qingtang did not have any intentions to take action, everyone quickly pleaded her to help. Holy Lord, Luo Tufeng offended you time and again. You cannot let him off just like that. A group of powerful figures requested successively. The guests did not have any connections with the Temple of Shadows and thus were aware that it was a little disrespectful to ask the Holy Lord of Shadows to save them. However, they did not have any choice left. Obviously, Yi Qingtang knew what these people were thinking. If she had that ability, she would have struck even without them saying. But the issue was, she did not have that ability, even those powerful figures who were behind her were much more powerful than her. Insolent. What is your identity? You don't have the qualifications to order our Holy Lord. The Temple of Shadows Hall Master shouted coldly in dissatisfaction. Everyone was slightly shaken and said hurriedly, we do not mean to order the Holy Lord. We are just requesting the Holy Lord to make a move. Right. The Holy Lord is very esteemed, and inferior people like us dare not be disrespectful to the Holy Lord. The people were afraid that Yi Qingtang would be displeased and leave immediately. Thus, they hurriedly explained themselves. Holy Lord knows what to do and doesn't need you all to tell her what to do, the hall master said coldly. Instantly, everyone kept their mouth shut in fear that their last savior would leave out of annoyance. At this instant, Luo Tufeng, who continuously sucked the cultivation base of others, was hit with a rush of pleasure after feeling the powers that he absorbed. His eyes were red, and his desire to gain even stronger powers grew. Luo Tufeng's eyes landed on Yi Qingtang once again, and his bloodshot eyes resembled that of a vicious wolf. Chapter 1262, What was going on? 3. Not enough. This is far from enough. I still need more power. Luo Tufeng inched closer towards Yi Qingtang, and the thirst in his eyes was increasingly insatiable. Holy Lord of Shadows, you're indeed the most powerful. Give me your powers. I can become even more powerful. Red speckles of light flickered in his eyes as he lunged at Yi Qingtang violently. Has he had enough? Yi Qingtang wailed in her heart as she watched Luo Tufeng lunging towards him once again. She did not even know how she severely wounded Luo Tufeng earlier on. Now that his skills multiplied once again, how was she going to contend against him? She could not pray for a miracle to happen again, could she? Yi Qingtang finally realized that the Holy Lord of Shadows title was simply the source of a huge disaster if one did not possess the skills to suppress millions like the original Holy Lord did. Now that Luo Tufeng's skills soared, his speed was even more shocking. Given Yi Qingtang's skills, she could not even see Luo Qufeng's figure clearly and could only feel a killing intent approaching her continuously. With Luo Qufeng's current enhanced skills, anyone behind Yi Qingtang would simply be banished to death once they were caught by Luo Qufeng, much less herself, an impersonator of the Holy Lord of Shadows. At this instant, even if Yi Qingtang wished to escape, she was firmly blocked by the powerful figures behind her, and she could not move anywhere. All she felt was a surging killing intent rushing towards her. Luo Qufeng's figure appeared beside Yi Qingtang all of a sudden. He was smart this time. He did not confront Yi Qingtang with force and instead directly executed the technique to absorb others' cultivation base by slamming his palm on Yi Qingtang's shoulder and injecting endless red gleam from his palm into Yi Qingtang's body. Perhaps he was unable to defeat her by brute force, but as long as he used this cultivation technique, he could completely suck Yi Qingtang dry of her cultivation base in an instant. By then, he would possess absolute power that surpassed everyone else. Without even seeing clearly how Luo Qufeng approached her, Yi Qingtang felt Luo Qufeng's hand on her shoulder, and she knew she was in trouble. Luo Qufeng's technique was activated immediately, and an endless red gleam rushed out as though it wanted to completely infiltrate into her body and absorb all her cultivation base. Yi Qingtang's heart was completely cold. She was really dead this time. However, just as she was overwhelmed with despair, a force in her body was suddenly stimulated. The mutated heavenly demon bloodline that was buried deep in her body felt an external force attempting to suck her cultivation base and flared up abruptly. The mutated heavenly demon bloodline was stimulated instantly, and the power of the devouring bloodline directly counterattacked through the force that Luo Qufeng injected into Yi Qingtang's body. Luo Qufeng, who initially wished to absorb all of Yi Qingtang's cultivation base, felt that his technique to absorb cultivation bases was executed successfully, but before he could absorb a tiny bit of cultivation base, he suddenly felt an overwhelming force reflecting back at him through his own technique. In just a moment, an insurmountable force directly invaded Luo Qufeng's body. The greed on Luo Qufeng's face turned into astonishment immediately. What was going on? Not only did he fail to absorb Yi Qingtang's cultivation base, but his own cultivation base was beginning to be absorbed away by a force instead. Chapter 1263, To try to gain an advantage only to end up worse off. 1. The technique that Luo Qufeng used to absorb Yi Qingtang's cultivation base was completely dispersed by that huge force, which rushed into his body instead and absorbed his own cultivation base continuously. Luo Qufeng's expression changed drastically by this abrupt change. He hurriedly retracted his hand, but it was already too late. As his cultivation base was absorbed by Yi Qingtang, his complexion turned white gradually. Earlier on, everyone was alarmed when they realized that Luo Qufeng wanted to launch a sneak attack on Yi Qingtang and absorb her powers. But at present, they realized that there were no signs of discomfort on Yi Qingtang's exquisite face, and instead, Luo Qufeng appeared pale and drained. What's going on with Luo Qufeng? I don't know. I did not see the Holy Lord of Shadows attack just now either. Could he be wounded by the impact of the Holy Lord of Shadows' internal energy? Confusion crowded their minds. On the other hand, Yi Qingtang was overwhelmed with shock. It was natural for her to know that she possessed the devouring bloodline of the mutated heavenly demon bloodline. However, she was also very clear that it was simply impossible for her to use the devouring bloodline to devour the powers of other cultivators with her current skills and that she could at most absorb a few plants here and there. Yi Qingtang initially thought that she would definitely die this time, but Luo Qufeng's reaction surprised her. What exactly was going on? Why did Luo Qufeng's complexion become so ugly? Calming herself down, she faintly sensed that Luo Qufeng's powers were slowly absorbed by the devouring bloodline in her body, and the energy absorbed did not remain in her body but seemed to disappear into a void. Yi Qingtang was filled with surprise, but she also sighed in relief secretly. The heavenly demon devouring bloodline was the ancestor of many devouring bloodlines, while Luo Qufeng's technique to absorb the cultivation base of others must have been defeated and stimulated the heavenly demon devouring bloodline, thus, there was a reflection of the effect. However, Yi Qingtang was also very clear that even if Luo Qufeng's cultivation base was absorbed by the heavenly demon devouring bloodline, it had nothing to do with her. She did not initiate the bloodline to absorb his powers, and it was the heavenly demon devouring bloodline which acted by itself. Thus, no matter how much power was absorbed, she could not use any of it. Currently, Luo Qufeng was not as arrogant as before. He could clearly feel that his cultivation base was being absorbed away continuously, but he had no means of stopping it. In no time, Luo Qufeng seemed to have suffered a huge hit as his entire body was flung out, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. Blood stains streaked all over his ashy face, highlighting his miserable state. Luo Qufeng fell on the ground and clutched his chest that was almost exploding. He glared in disbelief at Yi Qingtang, who was completely unharmed. In just a moment, all the cultivation base in his body was completely absorbed away by her. Thousands of years of cultivation and his painstaking efforts to plot this scheme were utterly destroyed at this moment. How could this be? Never would Luo Qufeng have dreamed that he would actually lose all his cultivation base. As Yi Qingtang looked at Luo Qufeng, who collapsed on the ground puking blood, there was somewhat sympathy in her eyes. She could not be blamed for this. He was the one who insisted on absorbing her cultivation base, which ended up infuriating the heavenly demon devouring bloodline in her body. Not only was Luo Qufeng unable to absorb anything, but his own cultivation base was completely absorbed away by the heavenly demon devouring bloodline, and he even suffered the reflection of the heavenly demon devouring bloodline. Chapter 1264, To try to gain an advantage only to end up worse off. 2. It was really, trying to gain an advantage only to end up worse off. Yi Qingtang faintly felt that the restless heavenly demon devouring bloodline in her body had calmed down, while Luo Qufeng's cultivation base, which the heavenly demon devouring bloodline absorbed previously, disappeared without a trace. That was Luo Qufeng's cultivation of a lifetime. While that energy was powerful, it could not be of any use to Yi Qingtang, as all she could use was the energy she actively absorbed. Despite this, Yi Qingtang was still very content. If not for the stimulation of the heavenly demon devouring bloodline, she would have long been dead. No one knew the reason behind the situation, but they could not hold back their astonishment when they saw that Yi Qingtang severely injured Luo Qufeng without doing anything. Only the Temple of Shadows Hall Master frowned slightly after witnessing the sight. Heavenly demon devouring bloodline, the Temple of Shadows Hall Master mumbled softly. Perhaps no one could tell, but he did. The reason why Luo Qufeng was seriously wounded at the heavenly demon devouring bloodline within Yi Qingtang was stimulated. Moreover, it was stimulated passively, and it was not Yi Qingtang who actively absorbed Luo Qufeng's cultivation base. This caused the Temple of Shadows Hall Master to become suspicious. However, he did not show too much emotion and merely observed silently. On the other hand, Yi Qingtang calmed herself down and looked at the miserable Luo Qufeng. If she did not guess wrongly, Luo Qufeng was now a good-for-nothing with zero cultivation base after his cultivation base was all absorbed by the heavenly demon devouring bloodline. Yi Qingtang moved her feet and walked straight towards Luo Qufeng. She could not defeat Luo Qufeng at all previously, but now, Luo Qufeng was completely unaware that this happened because of Yi Qingtang's devouring bloodline and merely thought that this Holy Lord of Shadows was so formidable that she actually also grasped such techniques to absorb the cultivation base of others. As he, who had lost all cultivation base, watched Yi Qingtang inch closer, his face turned increasingly pale. Holy Lord of Shadows, you actually also. Luo Qufeng's expression changed drastically and was about to mention that Yi Qingtang also knew techniques to absorb cultivation bases. But Yi Qingtang would not give him the chance to speak now. Before Luo Tufeng could speak finish, a black flame appeared in Yi Qingtang's hands suddenly, and it flew towards the ghastly Luo Tufeng with the slight flick of her finger. Before Luo Tufeng could finish his sentence, he was interrupted by the excruciating burn from the blazing flame. The moment the flame touched his clothes, it spread all over his body like a wildfire. In the dark night, Luo Tufeng was engulfed by the black flame as cries of misery escaped his mouth non-stop. The silent night seemed extremely eerie and terrifying. No one knew that Luo Tufeng had already lost his cultivation base and only saw that Luo Tufeng was unable to retaliate against Yi Qingtang's casual attack using a black flame. This sight drew much astonishment at Yi Qingtang's unfathomable powers. Yi Qingtang stood at a side expressionlessly in a detached manner. Unbeknownst to all, her heart had leaped to her throat just a moment ago. Had Luo Tufeng not lost his cultivation base, she would definitely not attack Luo Tufeng no matter how bold she was. But now, torturing someone without any cultivation base was an easy feat. The Luo family members watched the sight in disbelief. Why did it become like this? Luo Qi watched with wide eyes as Luo Tufeng was engulfed by the black flame. Chapter 1265, To try to gain an advantage only to end up worse off. 3. The Luo family members had absolute faith in Luo Qufeng's skills, and with his technique to absorb cultivation base, they were very certain that the plot today would succeed and that the Luo family was going to ascend to a superior position in the central mainland. But no one would have expected things would turn out this way. Luo Feng's expression was extremely ugly at this point. He never thought that Luo Tufeng would be defeated, but now, Luo Tufeng was clearly not Yi Qingtang's opponent, and if Luo Tufeng was defeated, the Luo family would be in trouble. The guests present today were from various influential forces, and they probably would not let the Luo family off easily in the future. Go. Luo Feng gritted his teeth silently. Luo Qi was slightly dumbfounded, but he realized the current situation very quickly. Then, the senior members of the Luo family hurriedly escaped without a sound just as everyone's gaze was focused on Luo Tufeng and Yi Qingtang. Luo Tufeng screamed non-stop in the entrapment of the black flame. If it was in the past, Yi Qingtang's black flame would not be able to harm him at all, but now, he was merely a useless person without any cultivation base. In no time, Luo Qufeng's shrills faded from everyone's ears, and only a burnt, charred corpse was left in the blazing flame. Luo Qufeng's scheme was destroyed eventually. Everyone gasped as they looked at the burnt corpse. Thank you, Holy Lord of Shadows. We will never forget your grace, Holy Lord. The guests finally sighed in relief and hurriedly rushed forward to thank Yi Qingtang. They never expected Luo Qufeng's skills to be so powerful. Had Yi Qingtang not made a move, all of them would probably lose their lives here. With a faint smile, Yi Qingtang swept a look across everyone without saying anything. If not for the Holy Lord of Shadows image, she would already have dragged this group of people who hid behind her out and gave them a beating. If the heavenly demon devouring bloodline was not stimulated, she would definitely be dead just now. Thank you for stepping up to help us today, Senior. Hong Zhong immediately thanked Yi Qingtang respectfully after keeping his life with a stroke of luck. Senior, your skills are indeed no less than before. Hong and I admire you a lot. It is all thanks to you today. If I can be of help in any areas in the future, Soamu, am willing to be at your service. Soamu stepped forward to express his gratitude first. It must be known that if Luo Tufeng did not court death by finding trouble for Yi Qingtang, he and Hong Zhong would have had their cultivation base sucked away completely. If the cultivation base that they obtained after thousands of years of cultivation was lost, that feeling would be more terrible than death. Yi Qingtang could not help but feel rather amused when she watched the two renowned figures of the central mainland thank her. Everyone, the Luo family members took the opportunity to escape when we were not paying attention just now. Someone who wanted to come after the Luo family after Luo Tufeng died realized suddenly. The senior members of the Luo family had already fled away without a trace, and only the small fries who did not really understand today's situation were left behind. Do they think that it is over once they run away? How can today's incident be over so easily? The people were still in a state of shock over everything today. Now that they emerged safely out of danger, they naturally resented the entire Luo family to the core. Unable to find anyone to vent their anger, the masses simply set fire to the Luo residence. It was only after watching the tall and lofty pavilions burn in flames did the flames in their heart quell slightly. Chapter 1266, Walking on Thin Ice. 1. Thank you for stopping the Luo family's devious scheme today, Holy Lord. Everyone thanked Yi Qingtang repeatedly. Yi Qingtang put on a calm and composed front and wore a faint smile. Her attitude was like that of a superior person. It's just a small matter. A matter where she almost lost her life. Everyone was overwhelmed with emotion at Yi Qingtang's composure and only left after thanking her repeatedly. Yi Qingtang smiled sweetly as she watched the powerful figures leave. She was really about to be drained from exhaustion. It was truly a frightful night. If possible, Yi Qingtang would have taken this opportunity to slip off. However, the Temple of Shadows Hall Master and others were still standing behind her. Holy Lord, do we return to the temple? The Hall Master asked. No. Yes. Yi Qingtang held the tears in her eyes and forced out a happy smile. Then, Yi Qingtang and the rest returned to the Temple of Shadows immediately. Soon after they left, many Luo family members appeared at the peak of a mountain behind the Luo residence, and their moods were extremely low as they watched the blazing fire not far away. A tall figure suddenly appeared in the sky and landed before them. What happened? A low shout suddenly escaped from that person's mouth. The Luo family members looked up immediately and saw a handsome middle-aged man standing before them with a frown. Luo Feng and Luo Qi's eyes brightened with just one look. Third brother. The man who suddenly appeared in the sky was none other than Luo Feng and Luo Qi's younger brother, the third hand of the Luo family, Luo Yuan. Third brother, you're finally back. It would have been great, if you came back earlier. Today, Luo Qi's repressed emotions erupted immediately once he saw Luo Qi. What happened exactly? Haven't you all already made all the preparations for great-grandfather's birthday banquet today? Luo Yuan had an ugly expression and frowned as he looked at the Luo residence that had been engulfed in flames. Luo Qi immediately recounted the whole incident to Luo Yuan. After he listened for a while, a powerful aura rushed into the sky, and the mountain behind him was flattened to a field immediately in just a moment. Even the ground that the Luo family members were stepping on began to tremble. Luo Qi and Luo Feng were slightly startled as they watched the enraged Luo Yuan. Luo Yuan seemed to be even more powerful than before, and his aura was even stronger than Luo Qufeng's. Everyone in the Luo family only knew that the Grand Elder, Luo Tufeng, was very skilled, but people did not know that the true talent of the Luo family was Luo Yuan. Luo Yuan was extremely gifted since young, and even Luo Qufeng's endowment was inferior to Luo Yuan's. Luo Tufeng has always had high expectations for Luo Yuan and trained him attentively. Under Luo Qufeng's arrangements, Luo Yuan left the Luo family a long time ago to cultivate, and his skills soared tremendously, not to the disappointment of the Luo family and Luo Tufeng. Holy Lord of Shadows. Luo Yuan calmed his anger, but his eyes were extremely cold as he watched the blaze before him. Big brother, second brother, don't worry. I, Luo Yuan, will definitely avenge the Luo family. Luo Yuan's voice was sonorous and forceful. Right when he finished his sentence, he unsheathed his sword abruptly and swept across at the air, causing an enormous wave-like gush of air to extinguish the endless fire that engulfed the already burnt Luo residence. Chapter 1267, Walking on Thin Ice, 2. Once Yi Qingtang returned to the Temple of Shadows, she headed back to her own living quarters. The number of frights that she suffered from the 2 days of being in the Temple of Shadows was more than what she experienced in the past few years. It felt like walking on thin ice, like her life was hanging on a bare thread. After Yi Qingtang returned to her living quarters, the hall master who went to the Luo residence with Yi Qingtang went to meet Ming Wang. Ming Wang was discussing some matters with a few tribe leaders and immediately called the hall master in for a report after hearing that the hall master was back. "Is the Holy Lord back?" Ming Wang asked in a low voice without looking up. "Yes," replied the hall master. Ming Wang looked up slightly and took a look at the hall master expressionlessly. The Luo residence must have been rather lively today. The demon tribe leader from aside heard a hidden meaning in Ming Wang's words and asked immediately, "Ming Wang, do you know something about the Luo family's birthday banquet? Otherwise, given your personality, why would you let the Holy Lord go there?" Just based on the Luo family's skills itself, the Luo family did not deserve their Holy Lord to head there personally. Ming Wang's eyes had an aloof expression. Luo Tufeng obtained a fragmented scroll of a cultivation technique previously and has been secretly cultivating it over the past years. This cultivation technique can absorb other people's cultivation base and use it themselves. He has been cultivating it for thousands of years, and it should be about done. The birthday celebration this year was publicized so widely, and it should be because they conspired something. How would the Luo residents not be lively then? The tribe leaders immediately understood Ming Wang's intentions after what Ming Wang said. "You knew it long ago. So, you sent the Holy Lord there intentionally to use this opportunity to test her identity?" Ming Wang's expression was the same as before. "I knew it long ago. What do I know? I am not a member of the Luo family and have no interest in what they want to do." Although that was what Ming Wang said, the tribe leaders present were not fools and naturally understood what Ming Wang meant. Were there any interesting incidents during the birthday celebration? Ming Wang turned to look at the hall master and asked. The hall master immediately narrated the events to Ming Wang in full detail. There was a subtle change in Ming Wang's expression. "You said that Luo Qufeng's cultivation base was absorbed by the Holy Lord's heavenly demon-devouring bloodline?" "Yes." The hall master nodded and said subsequently. "But according to my observation, it was not the Holy Lord who actively absorbed it, and it seemed more like the heavenly demon-devouring bloodline automatically absorbed Luo Qufeng's powers." "She did not absorb it actively." Tilting his head slightly, Ming Wang supported his head with one hand while gently tapping a chair with the other. "I got it. You can leave first." "Noted." The hall master received his order and retreated immediately. The moment the hall master left, the other tribe leaders spoke. "Ming Wang, although the Holy Lord has not really displayed her skills before us, we cannot be certain that she really possesses the heavenly demon-devouring bloodline. However, it is indeed fishy that the heavenly demon-devouring bloodline passively absorbed the cultivation base of others. Given the Holy Lord's skills, why is there a need for this? Furthermore, it was not instructed by her either." The tribe leaders grew increasingly suspicious. Although that human did not tamper with the Nine Souls ring, it does not say much either, as she could have tampered with it herself if she intended to. The goblin tribal leader commented subsequently. The more they observed the Holy Lord, the more suspicious they became. However, her actions were extremely similar to that of the Holy Lord's, and they could not distinguish the difference at a moment. "If anyone has any thoughts, you may just say it," Ming Wang said immediately. "We don't have many thoughts, but our objective is the same. No one can impersonate the Holy Lord, and anyone who dares to do so will be a sinner for eternity," the demon tribe leader said coldly. Ming Wang narrowed his eyes slightly. His pitch-black eyes were filled with an eerie iciness. "Of course, if anyone impersonates the Holy Lord, I will let them know what the cruelest torture in this world tastes like. This promise of yours is sufficient." The few tribe leaders exchanged a look and made a decision in their hearts immediately. Chapter 1268, Walking on Thin Ice, 3, Yi Qingtang collapsed on the soft bed in her living quarters. The little white tiger took a peek at Yi Qingtang and knew that the birthday banquet tonight was not simple. This is still the beginning. If you don't leave the Temple of Shadows, you will suffer more in the future. Today's birthday banquet is most likely to test you, and there will be many more such incidents in the future. With these skills of yours, you might very well be exposed one day, said the little white tiger. Do you think I don't wish to go? I can't even go. Yi Qingtang's headache intensified. Other people were envious of the Holy Lord of Shadow's reputation and position, but anyone apart from the true owner of the position would go berserk if they were at the position. Not mentioning how many enemies the Holy Lord of Shadows had outside, the suspicions that the internal members of the Temple of Shadows had over her identity were already extremely life-threatening. Just as the little white tiger and Yi Qingtang were talking, the door to her room was suddenly opened. Startled, Yi Qingtang hurriedly sat up and suddenly saw, a tiny figure was hiding behind the door quietly, and he poked half his head out to look at her cautiously. Minggu. Yi Qingtang's heart reached her throat when she saw the little fellow hiding behind the door. She did not know whether Minggu heard her conversation with the little white tiger. Ah Yao. Can I come in? Seeing that he was discovered, Minggu immediately moved his tiny legs and kept his hands behind him while looking at Yi Qingtang pitifully. Looking at Minggu's reaction, Yi Qingtang reckoned that he did not hear the conversation and was slightly relieved. She then put on a doting expression and smiled. Why? You have not seen me for half a day, but you miss me so much already. There was a slight hint of shyness on Minggu's ash face. He lowered his head rather awkwardly, and he swayed his body. Of course I miss you, but I know that you hate those so-called banquets and that you have never liked human food. I thought that you must not have eaten much today, so I specially brought something for you. Just looking at Minggu's shy behavior and leaving aside his identity as the Temple of Shadow's holy son and the current situation, Yi Qingtang's heart was about to melt. Minggu always reminded her of little Yu Yun whom the ancient Yu clan stole away. Little Yu Yun was also very shy and adorable like this then. Without control, Yi Qingtang's smile became more natural, and her voice had a sincere teasing tone. What delicacy did you bring? Let me see. Minggu's eyes brightened slightly, and he broke out into a bright smile. He immediately stretched out his tiny hands that he kept behind him. In his tiny hands was a black worm that was a whole ring bigger than his hands. Its round body wriggled around and gave off a rotten, decomposed smell. With just a look, Yi Qingtang almost vomited. Ah Yao, this is a black flame worm that I just caught today. I know that you like to eat this the most. Quickly eat it while it's hot. It is still well and alive now. Ming Wang wanted to eat it, but I could not even bear to give it to him. Minggu did not even realize that Yi Qingtang's lips were twisted, and he blinked his wide eyes as though he was offering a treasure. The undead clan would not age nor die, and eating was not to sustain their life but to fulfill the stomach's desires. Moreover, they had an extremely unique taste for food and usually consumed special species of dead creatures. The black flame worm was one of the best delicacies in the eyes of the undead clan. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.